messages, people that live off island, and then survivors that we have, interview them, and then go to each mayor live and show us, if you decide you want to do a float, show us your float, or if you want to just talk about, why it's important to commemorate liberation. So we want to go to every single village via Zoom live at the normal time that the parade would happen. What does it sound?
No, it sounds awesome. I'm just like, you know what? That's why you're you. You're going to eat lunch today.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
It's not always easy trying something new. Sometimes you have to help your loved ones along. Nana is so used to her weekly trips to the bank that going online can be a little scary for her. But her grandson knows that banking online is safer and easier. So he's teaching her how to get started using Bank of Guam's online banking videos. Teaching is one way to show our loved ones we care, keep your family safe at home, and show them how to bank online. Find easy-to-use online banking tutorials at bankofguam.com or on our Instagram and Facebook pages. Bank of Guam, member FDIC. It's not always easy trying something new. Sometimes you have to help your loved ones along. Nana is so used to her weekly trips to the bank that going online can be a little scary for her. But her grandson knows that banking online is safer and easier. So he's teaching her how to get started using Bank of Guam's online banking videos. Teaching is one way to show our loved ones we care, keep your family safe at home, and show them how to bank online. Find easy-to-use online banking tutorials at bankofguam.com or on our Instagram and Facebook pages. Bank of Guam, member FDIC.
Can't nobody take my home from me. There is no place like home. Send quite a how gone. And I'm proud of where I'm from. Yeah, there's no place like home. And I will never leave you. And I will never forget. No, 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 yeah. I will always take you wherever I go, so that everyone can know. There is no place like
Kantai mantunat nyagi toru ilugar para honra para gloria abiba islasen para honra para gloria abiba islasen para Gitodu i tempo i paz para ita dan gini langit na bendition contra i peligro na fan sa fuham Deus protege Islandwong contra i peligro na fan sa fuham Deus protege Islandwong.
When I first saw you, girl, you put a big smile on my face. Then I said to myself, how beautiful you are. Then I got to thinking what it would be like to have you in my arms and squeeze you oh so tight. Then I had a dream of me and you. Down the aisle we walked on through. Dear Father said, do I love you? I quickly said yes, baby. Without you, baby, life would be so blue. Without you, without you, life would be so sad. I wouldn't know what to do till the day I die. I'll be by your side. Without you, baby, life would not be right. And I'm all home, where could I gone in my saddle? Mountains beneath the moon.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, Guam. Right on. Kicking it on with a little bit of Eric Borja and Easy Jams. Good stuff. Sin Haku. Without You. It's cool about that song is they do it in English and then they do it in Chamorro, and it's a quick way to kind of learn a little bit. A great cut. That's from Lime Local Fridays, an awesome program. Going strong after many years promoting the local music, and that's all you'll hear here on Containing COVID. It's all local for the next 3 hours and 32 minutes, a multimedia broadcast extravaganza. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
It's all proudly brought to you by Ambrose Inc., IT&E, Calvo Enterprises, Coast 360, and the Bank of Guam on the 1st of the month. Yep.
New quarantine protocols.
Right, new month, new quarantine. Yeah. But this quarantine protocol has changed almost more than the weather. Right, and so we'll have more on that. And also, we'll talk with the medical director of public health, Dr. Jana Maglotnia. There's a lot going on with public health. I believe this is the surge. You know what I mean? We've seen positives for a few days now, and there are a ton of contact trace investigations going on the public health side, and they're also in flux. As Linda DeNorsi, whose last day is this Friday, I was told she's on leave until the end of her, until Friday. So the department's being run by the acting director, who was the deputy director, Lori Duenas, who apparently is more experienced than Linda DeNorsi, because according to the governor, she used to be Linda's boss. I wonder how Linda felt watching that. I think, knowing Linda and talking to her for the last few months, I think Linda would be proud of her staff.
Yeah.
Right. So it's 6:31. How was your night, Bree?
It was good. Yeah, it was great.
It was good. That's it. Okay. Bree's all about business. She's like, come on, Chris. So it's 6:31, and let's do it. We'll start the show. As always, a whole bunch of... What was that?
I don't know.
Did you touch something?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. I'll figure it out. Yeah, definitely a whole lot of guests this morning to share a lot of information for you guys. It's real information, real time. We'll catch up with Sergeant Paul Tapao of the Guam Police Department. Also on tap, the Vice President of the Mayor's Council of Guam, Mayor Robert Hoffman, who's been tasked and put on this homeless council. So they unveiled, there's an executive order. I'll let him talk about it, and we'll find out just where we are again in housing the homeless. Okay, it's the 1st of July, Wednesday, containing COVID. Let's do it with a dive into the day's COVID-19 headlines, the very latest from the KUAM News team. Good morning, Sabrina Salas-Mantanani.
Hafaday, good morning, everyone. More positive cases to report. Public Health ran 266 tests on Tuesday, and 2 returned positive. As reported yesterday, 2 also tested positive, and according to Public Health's updated situation report, one of those new cases tested positive through Diagnostic Laboratory Services, or DLS, and was identified through contact tracing and was from the same household. Yesterday's second new case tested positive at the Department of Defense and reported recent travel history from the U.S. mainland. This case was identified while in quarantine. As for an update on the contact tracing investigation at the Department of Corrections, Major Antone Uggan confirms 5 officers were tested and waiting for the results. As for an update on the contact tracing investigation involving an officer that tested positive at the Dededo precinct, GPD spokesperson Paul Tapao confirms several officers have been tested and they are waiting for the results as well. He adds that officers have also been placed on quarantine. GPD is working with the officers and their families to assist with their needs. Additionally, the Dededo precinct remains open. Tapao adds they are moving officers around to cover down the various shifts as a result of what's happening at the precinct. The total number of confirmed cases is now 259, with 5 deaths, 179 recoveries, and 75 active cases. 215 are civilians and 44 are military. In the nation's capital, a hearing is being held examining the impact of COVID-19 to U.S. territories. Here is Congressman Michael San Nicolas.
Good afternoon and Hafaday, Chairwoman Murkowski, Ranking Member Manchin, and members of the committee. I want to thank you for your leadership and advocacy in our combined efforts to provide equitable access of federal resources to the people of Guam and our U.S. territories in this global fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. In assessing our COVID-19 circumstances and evaluating what further action must be taken federally in order to fully meet the needs of our territories, we can find one very specific parallel to the pandemic itself. Pre-existing conditions exacerbate risk factors. For Guam in particular, the pre-existing conditions of unfunded earned income tax credit mandates, the lack of supplemental security income applicability, and the underfunded costs of the migratory impacts and the compacts of free association left us vulnerable and stall our efforts to recover. From inception, the EITC costs for Guam have ballooned to roughly 30% of total income tax refund liabilities on Guam. The very nature of the EITC is that it is intended to pay a qualified recipient an amount in excess of their total banked income tax withholdings in order to incentivize work. While the EITC as a broad federal program is sustainable, with the U.S. Treasury able to fund those costs using various deficit spending tools, applying them to Guam and leaving Guam to fund them is wholly unsustainable because the territory does not have similar access to such tools. As a result of this pre-existing condition, Guam's capacity to meet COVID-19 threats was greatly diminished, with less facility readiness and nurse recruitment and retention already inadequate to meet Guam's needs. The Congress must see to it that the federal government absorbs the cost of EITC by permanently funding it on a reimbursement basis in the territories. Additional thought should be put into a Federal Reserve facility to capitalize EITC costs to territories and direct payments from the Treasury to the Fed at the close of the fiscal year to reconcile it. When the pandemic struck and our tourism-based economy contracted, we have seen many families go from making ends meet to not being able to provide. We must recognize the pre-existing challenges facing our at-risk community and how their situations went from bleak to destitute as a result of the pandemic. At its core, Supplemental Security Income, SSI, is intended to serve as a lifeline for those who qualify, particularly the aged and the disabled, who otherwise would have little means to provide for their basic needs. The lack of SSI on Guam means that thousands of children and families go without what otherwise would be a staple of American decency throughout this country. Prior to the pandemic, this at-risk group was cared for by aging parents and gracious family members, many of whom worked multiple jobs to supplement the cost of living and care for their loved ones. This pre-existing condition already strained households, and the economic savaging of the pandemic has caused people to not only lose their jobs, but lose the ability to care for the disabled loved ones who would be supported by SSI had they not been statutorily excluded. The Congress must end the discriminatory exclusion of territories from SSI. Recent federal court rulings are already indicating that such an outcome is forthcoming. It will be both pragmatic and magnanimous for the Congress to fully extend SSI to the territories, particularly during these COVID-19 times, so that the people most in need, even before the pandemic, are finally made whole during the pandemic. As the renegotiations for the Compacts of Free Association implementation agreements begin in earnest, we must be mindful of how the pre-existing condition of these agreements have created critical health, education, and public safety vulnerabilities in the territory of Guam. To avail of the freedom to migrate, COFA citizens must either be doing so for education, healthcare, or employment. The costs associated with hosting COFA migrants under either of these three prerequisites have vastly exceeded current funding levels. In 2019, the rate of federally funded compact impact per COFA migrant was $892, which is far short of the cost to educate at over $9,000, the cost for government health care at almost $3,000, and the cost of EITC should they be working and receiving that benefit at $2,800 on a per-citizen basis on Guam. These shortfalls create real systemic imbalances and ripe pre-existing conditions for COVID-19 to go untested, untreated, or undiagnosed, as COFA migrants are ineligible for Medicaid coverage and the cash shortfall of underfunded migratory costs overburden the systems of care. The Congress must strive to provide as much balance as possible to the costs associated with hosting COFA migrants, as failure to do so comes at a cost to the health, education, and public safety institutions provided by host communities. The Congress must also extend the applicability of Medicaid to COFA migrants as a common sense component of the authorized migratory purpose of seeking health care, and further consider extending Medicaid directly into COFA states as a means to ameliorate health care migration at the source. Addressing these pre-existing conditions will certainly improve the outcome of all COVID-19 relief provided and permanently strengthen the Guam community to better withstand any future threats. While they represent long-standing issues within the territory of Guam, these pandemic circumstances have revealed the structural weaknesses caused by their systemic corrosion. To ensure our COVID-19 relief efforts are fully effective, and to ensure that Guam and our territories are properly situated for any future risks, we must address the EITC, SSI, and COFA inequities now, not later. Thank you, Chairwoman Murkowski and Ranking Member Manchin and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify before you today.
The reopening of tourism as well well as the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program.
We closed early as well, Senator. Similar to similar to our colleagues in the CNMI around the same time. What the reality is on the ground now, however, is because of these social programs that I mentioned earlier not applying to Guam and the various impacts that it's having on our local revenue streams, we're really running into that very real sticky place where people want to stay safe and secure and not bring the virus in. But we're such a tourism-dependent economy that if we don't open up and if we don't begin having flights coming in, the financial circumstances are going to result in perhaps equally damaging healthcare realities for many of our people. And so in the earlier question, Senator Murkowski, about the PPE needs, while FEMA has been wonderful and HSS has been wonderful in meeting our status quo needs, the reality is when we bring these tourists in, we're going to have an exponential need. We have 160,000 people living on Guam, but we bring in 1.6 million tourists a year, the most per capita than anywhere else in the country. If we don't have PPE for those visitors, we're just going to be inviting catastrophe. And once that spirals out of control, the tourism will shut down all over again. And so we have a very unique set of circumstances where we need to understand that opening up eventually is going to have to happen. But we're also going to need the resources and the plans in place in order to do so responsibly so that it's sustainable.
Let me just say, if I can take one more liberty here. We know the economies are all struggling in all states and all territories. So we know that the economy is not going to come back until we have an antibody or a vaccine to where people feel safe, that they can really go out and operate it that we've done before. So with not the economy coming back the way you would like for it to, can you, real quickly, just all of you, what's your greatest need you have? You think, is food going to be the greatest concern you have, sustaining your citizens? Is it going to be your health care services, being able to sustain your health care services that they might be needing? What would you term or define as your greatest need? And I would assume you all are looking forward to another round of COVID assistance.
Well,
the CARES Act.
Senator, from our perspective, we were able to provide some unique set of eyes in that our unemployment program is only now getting stood up. And so we can kind of give you an example of what happens when unemployment isn't around anymore. On top of that, the eviction moratoriums are expiring on the 25th of July. The federal pandemic unemployment compensation is expanding at the end of July. And so we're going to be facing multiple threats. Right now, because unemployment has taken so long to roll out, we have people literally lining up at 2 in the morning in their cars waiting for food assistance to get handed out. And they'll wait for 4 hours. And then when they show up, when they finally make it up to the front of the line, food's out. And so, food can be looked at as one definite need, but definitely healthcare. And it's all multifaceted. The reality is until our economies are working again, those are all going to be needs, to include rental assistance, housing assistance. And so as my colleague from the CNMI mentioned earlier, the HEROES Act does provide a significant amount of support that we think would help carry us into where a vaccine will probably be available. But absent any additional COVID relief similar to the CARES Act and on a continuous and ongoing basis, particularly for our tourism-oriented economies, we're going to be in a very bad place.
And that was Congressman Michaelson Nicholas. A hearing just wrapped up to examine the impact of COVID-19 to U.S. territories. After working with the University of Guam, Guam Community College, the Guam Department of Education, public charter schools, private schools, and telecommunications companies, the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration has developed a plan for the use of $12.5 million in education stabilization funds made available through CARES Act money to address the impact of COVID-19 on the educational system. Under Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio's oversight, education stabilization funds will be subgranted to elementary and secondary schools, as well as institutions of higher education, to provide maximum access to distance learning. Initiatives include vouchers for students to purchase and access internet services necessary for remote learning. At institutions of higher education, students will be provided rebates or refunds for all or a portion of the technology, internet, and computer student fees charged for the fall 2020 and spring 2021 semesters. Funds may also be used to develop and enhance programming such as PBS University, a project collaboration with GDOE, which supplements distance education efforts led by teachers. The Guam Public Library System will also receive money to increase bandwidth to allow increased access to online materials prepared by GDOE and private schools. Funds are anticipated to be immediately available for use in the upcoming school year. The governor has issued an executive order establishing a new Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Protection within the Mayor's Council. She also repealed the reconstituted the members of the Interagency Council on Homelessness to be chaired by the Lieutenant Governor, a representative from the Mayor's Council, the GURA Director, the Housing Corporation President, the Regional Transit Authority Manager, a member of the Homeless Coalition, and a member from the public at large. Appearing on Containing COVID yesterday, Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio said the mayors will be an important part in solving the homelessness puzzle. The Lieutenant Governor saying the mayors know exactly who the people are and some of the gaps, and so based on that, they are creating the structure that is going to empower and direct the agencies and establish who exactly is going to be the lead, and then have some mandates, and those will connect the dots with programs that should be able to help people based on the circumstances and gaps in which people are approved or seen to get into those streams. While administration officials have said that the awarding of a bid for a hardened homeless shelter would be last week, Tenorio said he anticipates an announcement hopefully today. We now bring in Tomas Manglotnio with the latest from the CNMI. Good morning, Tomas.
Good morning, Bree and Chris. Here's the latest making news in the Northern Marianas. Yesterday, the Resources, Economic Development, and Programs Committee meeting was held at the Senate. Among a laundry list of bills, one discussed was House Bill 21-112 to authorize a freeze on rent increases, evictions, and foreclosures during a declared state of emergency or major disaster and for other purposes. Here's Senator Sixto Igasomar's discussion. Take a listen.
Thank you, Chairman. And looking at the Attorney General's comment, I think I just got reminded that yes, we did file this bill in the Senate, a similar bill, and the only reason why we backed out in moving forward was because of the amount of resources we'll be needing, because just as the AG has alluded to in this bill, we were to be challenging ongoing current contracts and what do we do with them when there's contract issues. And so the thing is, I wanted to make it clear that for us, whether supporting this bill or not does not mean that we are not listening to the need of our community, but that the question of the governor does have emergency state of declaration when he would state that there's freeze on these items. And to try and put a bill together with such details on it will, again, for me, injure rights of the tenant and rights of the landlords, which I think requires a lot more analysis than just simply passing this bill without proper public hearing or more further analysis to make sure we can be able to, because it would be kind of useless if we pass this and then somebody's already in a contract and the contract four corners prevents us from telling them what to do. So that's why it kind of became, back then when the Senate was discussing the bill and the AG comment relative to the same bill, it made it where it's kind of okay at the moment where we rely on the governor's emergency declaration to state this price freeze and freeze on this, and then we let the system handle that because it gets overly complicated. So I agree, similarly to Senator JQ and you, Chair, we can get more analysis on this. This is Masi.
And later today, the House Committee on Federal Assistance and Disaster-Related Funding will be meeting around 10 a.m. at the Speaker's conference room. They're going to discuss some controversial COVID-19 government contracts and possible pay for cabinet members, among other issues. And a quick travel update, operational update from Star Marianas Air. According to their new flight schedules between Saipan and Rota, they'll be operating an additional mid-morning and afternoon scheduled flight between the islands, Saipan and Rota, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays now. The flight will be in addition to the current morning and afternoon flights on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Bring Chris, that's the latest making news here in the CNMI.
Thanks, Tomas. The Guam Election Commission will meet on Friday to go over the list of candidates that have filed for candidacy in the upcoming primary election. In the senatorial race, there are 16 Republican candidates and 16 Democrat candidates. On the Republican side of the ballot, at least that have filed so far, we have Telo Taitagui, Ryan Calvo, Vicente Anthony Borja Ada, James Moylan, Vincent Borja, Joseph Cruz, Joaquin Leon Guerrero, Sandra Seao, Dominic Hernandez, Mary Camacho Torres, Luis Muñoz, Frank Blas Jr., Michelle Armenta, Joanne Brown, Chris Duenas, and Don Edquilani. On the Democrat side, filed for candidacy is incumbent Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes, Amanda Shelton, Kelly Marsh Titano, Joe San Augustine, Therese Terlahi, Clint Rigel, Dave Duenas, John Ananich II, Jose Terlahi, Fred Berdallo Jr., Franklin Meno, Frank Leon Guerrero, the committee to draft Dennis Rodriguez Jr., Talina Nelson, Sabina Perez, and Chris Carrillo. In the Washington delegate race, the lone Republican is Will Castro, and in the Democrat side, Michael San Nicolas and former Congressman Robert Underwood. As reported, the GEC will be verifying the candidates and draw for ballot placement during Friday's hearing. The primary election is scheduled for August 29th. In national news, Dr. Anthony Fauci warns that the U.S. could see 100,000 new cases of coronavirus a day if the surge continues. That is up from the 41,000 new cases reported yesterday. The nation's top infectious disease expert made the comment on Capitol Hill, where federal health officials are testifying about plans to reopen schools and workplaces. Chris Martinez reports from Los Angeles, where county officials announced a record high increase in cases.
Dr. Anthony Fauci testified at a Senate hearing Tuesday as more than 30 states report rising numbers of coronavirus cases.
We've got to get that message out that we are all in this together. And if we are going to contain this, we've got to contain it together.
In Arizona, where hospitalizations are increasing, the governor ordered the closure of bars, gyms, movie theaters, and water parks for the next 30 days.
We want to slow the spread of this. We want to stop the spread.
Arizona has the highest rate of positive tests in the country, ahead of Florida and Nevada. Nearly 24% of tests there have come back positive over the last 7 days. That's compared to just 7% nationally. The World Health Organization says the rate should be at 5% before states decide to reopen. In California, hospitalizations are up roughly 43% in the last 2 weeks. Here in Los Angeles County, they're closing beaches and banning fireworks displays for the 4th of July weekend. On Monday, 3 counties closed bars voluntarily after the governor ordered bars closed in 7 other counties.
I understand it. I don't like it, but we got to do it.
At least 16 states are re-implementing or extending restrictions on bars and restaurants. It comes after health officials in Michigan linked more than 100 COVID cases to a bar in East Lansing. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
New York City's mayor cited the Michigan bar as one reason he's delaying the reopening of indoor dining at restaurants, and New Jersey put off allowing any indoor dining as well. In your Banking 671 report, anyone can be a victim, but there are some precautions you can take to safeguard your personal and financial identity. Be mindful of phishing schemes, unsolicited emails, and text messages that include links to phony, look-alike financial websites or even companies that you know or do business with. Be cautious with information you share on social networking sites, and don't post things like your address, your phone number, date of birth, email, or social security number. Never release any of your personal identifying information, credit card or bank account numbers over the telephone, via text message, over the internet, or by mail unless you have initiated the contact. It's also important to pay close attention to your surroundings, whether at home or while you are out and about. Do not leave credit or debit card receipts lying around or in shopping bags. At an ATM or checking out at the store, use your hand to shield your PIN if there are people standing too close to you. When shopping online, only use trusted, secure websites, and before providing any personal or financial information, make sure the address bar changes from an HTTP to an HTTPS address and includes a yellow padlock logo. That is your Banking 671 report, brought to you by the Bank of Guam and Coast 360. And that is your news.
Thank you, Serena.
You're welcome. You okay over there?
Yeah, good morning. I'm just, what was that noise that happened?
It's this, I think it's the wire.
Okay.
Ooh, technical.
Yeah. Good morning, Jason.
Hey, good morning.
You want to...
There you go.
All right.
Good morning. I heard you guys, did you guys say you were, you slept well? I just came from the back, so I heard like the beginning of the show, so. Did you sleep well, or were you?
Thanks for asking, Jay.
Or were you poring over the list of candidates? Like if I was a betting man, and I am not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys went through that with a fine-tooth comb, internally and between each other.
There wasn't much to go through. I mean, there's 16 people running on each side, which I don't know. I'm kind of worried. I'm worried a little bit.
Any surprises? Maybe as far as who has ran, or as opposed to who is not. I mean, we've talked about who's not coming back. Many times, but any surprises as who's?
I think not surprised, but there were definitely some names where I look, who is this person? So, some of these candidates got a lot of work to do in terms of like introducing themselves to the people of Guam.
It is going around on Guam Twitter, and Guam Twitter is a thing. Make no mistake, right? There is a strong community of Guamanians who talk on Twitter, and people said, and this has been like a long-standing rumor, like on Guam, that if you get in and you work. I think it's mayor or higher, mayor, vice mayor, senator, governor, congressman, whatever like that. Some people have done that in the past where, you basically have benefits when you pass on. The government,
like a state funeral or a pension.
Yeah, something like that. And people are like, hey, it's not that bad of an idea to basically say, can I run for public office? It's a 2-year commitment. It's a lot of work. But that may be a way to guarantee your family's taken care of.
Right. I'm looking at the mayoral races, and there's quite a few that are running unopposed, which means that looks like their constituents are happy.
Right,
so,
right.
For example, we have the Sinajana mayor, Robert Hoffman, is running unopposed.
Now that's interesting because some people would say
is running unopposed.
Some people would say to go head to head with someone who's done as much good as Mayor Hoffman has done is kind of a fruitless endeavor, because they're like, okay, I care about Sinajana, I want to try and do all I can, but they're like, he's got a really good reputation, so some people might say
he's been
he's what, 3rd term now? No,
I don't know, but I know that
he's on the line, guys. His ears are burning, probably.
But I think this isn't even the first time that he's ran unopposed.
Right,
this might be like a couple, 3 elections.
Well, let's just bring him on and ask him. Good morning, Mayor.
Hoffaday, good morning.
Good morning. Oh, I guess like kind of congratulations.
Thank you. And my colleagues of MTM, as well as Chalampago, as well as the Vice Mayor of Barrigada and the Mayor of Manila also running unopposed. So congratulations to them as well.
Well, that's good. So they can focus on, you guys can focus on, cleaning up the village and stuff instead of having to worry about campaigning.
Yes, and then we also we usually have a standing rule within our colleagues is whoever's running unopposed has to handle organizing the Christmas party. That's kind of the way it works. It's less work for them, and they'll still work, but at least they don't have they can have that extra time to also help plan something. So I think it's along that lines too.
Well, let me know if you guys need an MC.
And we will.
I know a guy.
But this is going to be I'll be going into my 5th term now.
Wow.
2 terms as vice mayor and 2 terms as mayor, and I've not had an opponent.
There you go.
Wow.
So,
they love you.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I guess I just want to ask, do you ever think about running for a higher office?
My friends used to always tell me, why join the circus when you can watch for free? So that's always been
you guys got a little bit of a circus there at the Mayor's Council, too, sometimes.
True. But I don't know. I'm in my element. I enjoy what I do, and I get to really make the biggest impact, I think, at the local level, where I really feel that government works when it's down at this level.
Yeah.
And that is so true.
Yeah, you're right. And we saw that in the pandemic. I mean, you guys were the main people that we were talking to for the last few months, and we wanted to know what was going on at the village level, because a lot of times Adelup doesn't know. They're doing their thing. We call you guys, we get you on the phone, and I want to say that we got closer during this pandemic.
Yes, thank you, and we appreciate the opportunities to just kind of help spread the word. We do our jobs, and we're out there. We get the word out to the people, and you've been a very vital tool, and you played a very important role in the delivery of services. So
please stop it some more.
why not have that relationship? Right. I think there's a role that the media does play.
Yeah, and I think this during this pandemic, so much of our job, so to speak, was really just getting critical information out there. And that was, I want to say that was like 90% of our job. I mean, there were times where we were able to comment and talk about, how we felt about some of the decisions being made. But, every morning we woke up, that was what motivated us. It was like we got information that, we know people are listening and they got to hear it. And, we put it out there, and I feel like we put out the information that people needed to know in a way that, was unbiased, and it was in a platform that they could get the info. I mean, we're critical because we're coming from a place where we're just trying to stick up for the little people. So that always kind of colors what we do. But you're right. It was so much of it was, hey, go here to do this. Hey, this is what's happening. Hey, you got to stay home until this date. So
exactly. And I think that's the thing, is that you helped get people to the testing sites. They would have not known how to do it. And so without having that ability to reach out to the masses saying, here's where everything is, here's what's going on, it really, people rely on that information. So it was very helpful. So we appreciate it. So
thank you, Mayor.
We work together.
Right. So let's get right into it with this. There's an executive order that was signed. They reactivated the interagency homeless task force, or whatever it's called. So you're on it, and I know Lieutenant Governor Josh had really name dropped the Mayor's Council as being kind of a key part in solving this homeless puzzle. So if you could just kind of tell us what your involvement is and what else, anything else you can tell us about this executive order.
Sure. Executive Order 20-23 reinstitutes the Interagency Council, and was the first time that this Interagency Council is actually going to include the Mayor's Council, which we were dumbfounded why it wasn't there in many moons ago. I would say decades ago when it was created, because people who, at the minute they're either homeless or the risk of homelessness, they come to the mayors, they ask for assistance, they ask for where they can stay, and we've extended what we could, but there was always a gap in how the delivery of services happens. Most of these agencies that do have the ability to help only know what their agency role is, so they don't know where else to refer other people, because you're an expert of what you know. And so what this does now is it puts people in the same page, which I really feel is great, and it gets us all talking about the issues. Many of these agencies and departments receive some sort of money to help poverty prevention or homelessness. And it only made sense to kind of put everybody now and saying, okay, this is now all the things the homeless and the people who are facing poverty or struggling, this is what they can apply for and can get. And so we naturally asked, and when we were asked to be involved, we said, sure, this is, we're facing it. And, they say, if you want something done, ask a mayor. So we said, sure, we'll step up to it. So, it's just an additional role that we're taking on. We already do the Manumco centers and the senior centers. We take care of the adult daycares. And so this is an additional duty that we feel as a community. We said, this is something we can do. So, and it all starts off with just even doing basic verifications, because that's a barrier to them getting IDs, is how do you certify somebody that lives in a village when they're homeless, when they're a transient population? So we said, why don't we create the office that creates this and can certify this by using the point-in-time count and everything, all these other sorts. So it's great. We look forward to working with the Homeless Coalition, all our partners, all the civic groups, and with the foreign governments, because now that it's a government-type agency with the Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Prevention, that also gives it the full weight of the government of Guam, saying we're speaking on behalf of government for this dear consulate here. What can we do? Mm-hmm. So, there's many aspects of what can happen on it. If you've read the executive order, we're excited about it. Is it perfect? We know it'll never be perfect, but what's great is it can adapt, and the recommendations that the Interagency Council will make and all the adjustments that need to be can be met. It's not going to be set there, and that's where we can speak for our people at the legislature, we're at the federal level, saying, here we go. We hear the accurate counts of what we know. Here's the cases that we know. So, GUR is excited, Mass Transit is excited, the Veterans Affairs Office is excited, because, public health, because these are the agencies that already deal with homelessness.
Mm-hmm. So what exactly is it just bringing in the Mayor's Council into the fold, the new, new part of this Interagency Council for
that's
coordinating?
One of the aspects, and then it's almost like a one-stop now. So if you're an individual that's been homeless out there, if you're not in the point-in-time count system, then that's usually what they use as a baseline to kind of figure out what services you need, what happened, why you're in your situation. So that kind of, it creates a place where you can actually come in and say, I'm homeless, and then you create that file. Then you end up in the system. So for all these new ones that were displaced because of COVID or, evicted because of other reasons, this is kind of where they'll end up having to go to do that. And it'll also help kickstart their case management and files. We're saying, okay, based on your situation, you can go, we can get you the referral for, you can get SNAP assistance, or you can get up depending if they're victims of domestic violence or, persons with AIDS or something, then there's routes to go. Oh, you're a veteran? Well, we can get you here to a veteran's voucher. So most people don't know what services are out there, and most departments and agencies don't have a dedicated. They have somebody who's familiar with the process or the program, but it's not a dedicated place where you can walk in and say, can I see the homeless coordinator? Or, it's a person within a department saying, oh yeah, we receive a percentage of money, but it's not necessarily my main job. So at least now it won't be, we say the mayors can do it because, they're constantly looking at us saying, here, can we get food or can we get assistance? And so we always do that in times of disaster. We're their biggest champions because we're trying to figure out how we can get these, our brothers and sisters to safe areas. So we're glad to be included in the discussion, and we're glad to be included in the Interagency Council.
Mayor, what about the shelter? I talked to Jess Garcia of DPW yesterday, and he said something about what was out there was RFP or whatever bid for a warehouse. Can you just tell us what the situation is with the bid?
I know they're looking for spaces for the evening drop-in shelter, where only evenings they can come in and stay, and then there's some that are looking for units and looking for viable space. There's a lot of options that we're trying to look at, but the issue we have is what's available is very, very scarce, and it either doesn't meet the need of the standard or doesn't pass the muster recommendation by the CDC. And some of the heartbreaking things is you see an area that, hey, this might be ideal. You're online searching for it, and somebody it says, hey, this is going for X amount of money, and then when you're trying to negotiate, suddenly a different price because they're saying, you're bringing homeless here, then it's going to be a different price. And so those are the things we're like, wow, that's really ever shouldn't be the case, because I'm not sure the stigma of poverty in the community on that end, but they can contribute to society. And
right, but I think maybe if you have like a former Parks and Rec director who's saying that they're trashing all the parks and they're a nuisance and this and that, then obviously people who are trying to respond to this, maybe that's what they're thinking, because our government was just saying it the other week.
Yes, and that's very unfortunate. And that's the thing is, we have families who are living in their cars, and these are going to be, so there's going to be priority lists of how we can get these things in there. We have, get the families taken care of, get the long-term, get those that are, the most qualified in the sense of, those that are most at risk to COVID. And so it's putting them in those areas. And then sometimes some of the homelessness are just situations are caused by family disputes or things. And so sometimes those referrals can just be getting, intervention in there, getting some mediation, getting some professionals there. And then some of it is, they lack proper building materials, or, they're kicked out for a specific reason, or whichever else, or some of the other reasons we were talking about and exploring is some of them can't stay in certain federal housing because of certain charges. And depending how old those charges are, this is something we are willing to look at to see, asking the governor, making the recommendations to the parole board or the pardon board, and saying, hey, this is a marijuana charge that's 40 years old. Is this something we can talk about? Is this negotiable, so that we can reunite these families and do something? So, we're trying our best to see, because there's no one direct way to do it.
Right. It just, to me, though, I got to say, I don't know if this is what you would consider it as a distraction to the fact that we still don't have a hardened shelter or a shelter for the homeless. So, you know what? Let's put this out and show, look what we've done. We've reconstituted the Interagency Council, and we're putting the mayors at the front of this, when we've known for the past several months that the mayors should have been at the front of this, because you guys are the ones on the ground and you know what's happening in your villages. So it's like, this is great. Okay, it's on paper. But at the end of the day, you guys have always known what's been happening in your villages when it comes to homeless. But what we don't have, and what we've been talking about for how many months now, is this hardened homeless shelter. So thank you for this executive order.
Yeah, it's hard
And is this,
for that.
just because we have this executive order, does this mean that we're going to have a hardened homeless shelter like today or tomorrow?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I know there's still a group out looking for it. They're engaged. I know Jesse John and the rest of those people are still looking at it, GSA, and they're looking at it. Our role is in the Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Prevention. We talked about, we want to make sure that we get the bodies there, the qualified people, move those personnel, those agencies down there. We can transfer them now here. And then at the same time, it's going to be space. So we're looking at space near the Mayor's Council also to either rent and, so we're not so far away from the administrative offices, but, assuming the administrative duties of running an office, that's going to be something that we've looked at for us as a council, and we feel we can still do it. And so, we're rising up to the challenge on it. And, if it doesn't work out, we can make the recommendations in the year after this.
If it doesn't work out, give it back to Adelup, because I feel like they just, pass the buck to you guys in a major way. Right? I mean, that's good. I feel like you guys are the ones who should execute it.
But
I think it's hard which agency to handle, because it always says, well, I can help homeless, but I can only help the food part. So every agency was hard to kind of saying, who wants to run this office? And we're like, okay, fine, we'll do it. We're general. So the Mayor's Council basically became General Government Affairs and Operations, because it's hard to peg it into one office, which is completely understandable.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, the hardened homeless shelter, it's so frustrating. I'm just so pissed about it. But on the other side of it, this interagency council is going to fill in that other half. Yes, of course, we want to get a roof over their head, but when we start talking about long-term solutions, collating all these agencies that will respond to this issue. And I mean, to me, I agree with Bria, it's a little late, you know what I mean? But what can we do?
Well, the mayors are no nonsense, and you've seen that where times when we get these agencies in there, and because our frustrations were like that for the last, I've been in office for 16 years, and the frustrations, whereas we either make referrals or we talk about these things, and sometimes we wonder, like, so what is it exactly that you do then, with the homeless money or with these emergency services? So it's nice to see that we've had a lot of agencies and directors step up to it, and they're like, yes, finally we can actually kind of work on this way. And so I think by being that government agency, that point person, it gives them also, that backing to say, okay, we have some support here in terms of referral services. So some of the things, too, that we looked at is some of these homeless want to return to their family members in the outer islands or into the States and do that. So, if it's eliminating and relocating and doing family reunification, that's going to be a great thing for us. And so, even if we move 10, 15 people, so we're going to slowly chip away at it. We understand that. And so that's how we understand the shelter. Hopefully we don't need the shelter. If we can get everybody mediated and taken care of, then that's great. But in reality, not everybody's also going to want to go into a shelter. We know that there's homeless out there that choose that life.
It's got to be an option, though. I don't think we can say that no one wants to go into the shelter unless we actually present it as an option. But, Mayor, we got to run because we got Dr. Magloutny on, and there's so much going on with the COVID.
Awesome. No problem.
Thanks,
you.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Wash your hands.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Yeah, I think what's key here, Bree, and looking at the bigger picture, is there are so many homeless and poor on our island that we have had to formulate this response. I mean, now we have an office of homelessness assistance and poverty prevention because so many people are out here struggling and suffering. 7:13. Let's switch gears. Well, not switch gears because it's kind of what the pandemic's all about. We'll catch up with the medical director from Public Health, Dr. Jana Magloutny. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning. How are you all today?
Okay.
We're doing
How
pretty
about
good.
you? Hanging in here.
It just got kind of hard to transition from homelessness to bright, sunshiny Dr. Magloutny. Give me a minute.
I'm dodging radio and COVID.
Right. So, Doc, I guess, serious business now. And I know you spoke with Annette, I hope so. So what can you tell us about the status of all the different contact trace investigations that are going on with Department of Public Health in response to this latest surge of COVID-19 positive cases?
Okay. I want to say first off, because I think this is on everyone's mind. So far, we've had 20-some cases in the last week. None of them seem to be linked to the airmen, the 35, which that was good. Which continues. We're past the window now too. None of our cases. Now, I know that DOD has reported some cases, and because we're not involved with their public health investigation on base, I don't know if they are linked to anyone at their facilities. I wouldn't have any information about that. But
Doc, can I just get in? Sorry, just real quick on the DOD side. If there was an incident of positives that with a military contractor, would that be under the DOD side, or would that be?
They reported to us. We would at least know. Like they've had several cases recently, and they report to us. But as far as their contact investigation, they do it all internally, and the airmen stay on the base, or the sailors stay on base.
What about civilian people who work for a military contractor?
Those, they will do their investigation on base, and then we take it over from the Guam side of it.
So are you able to confirm if there were 3 positives that worked for a military contractor?
I don't know who their employer was. I know they've had a few cases this week, but I wouldn't know what their positions were. Okay. But I do know that one just recently arrived and was symptomatic, but I don't know what their position is.
Doc, because I had got a tip about 3 positives working for the contractor, and they were saying that, and I don't know, we can only ask, right? Trust and verify, that it was something about the water cooler. It was not, they didn't sanitize the water cooler. Is that possible or even accurate?
Well, okay, we didn't get that report.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to think in general what a water cooler might do. It could be. I've seen, I don't know, I won't drink out of water coolers myself because I've seen people, while I'm sitting at my desk, people go take their bottles and hook it on to that spout, and that's the bottle they just drank out of.
or they touch their face and then they touch the spigot to pour the water. Right.
And we know that transmission occurs like that too. That's why we say wash the hands. So we know that's an easy way to get it. So I haven't heard that, but would it surprise me? Not in the least.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I wanted to ask you about the situation report because there was an increase in the positive cases on the military side, and there were 2 new positive cases aside from the 22 from over a week ago. And I'm wondering if you could provide us any information regarding that, because I did send something over to Joint Region Marianas. They kicked me over to Anderson Air Force Base, and I haven't heard a response from Anderson yet. But according to the SIP report, one of the positive cases was came from a quarantine facility.
That would probably, again, we don't get all of the details. We get the report, but they do their own investigations. But I did know that there was one. If they come from a quarantine, that generally means they just arrived on island and they're in quarantine, just like we do, waiting for symptoms and then testing from there, which is actually the best, because if people are brought in, and military or civilian brought in and quarantined, and you pick them up there, they haven't been allowed out. So that's actually a good thing. Better than somebody that's out and about and on the job.
Right, but the military's quarantine facility, do you know, for this particular case, if it's like at a hotel or on base?
Quarantining on base. My most recent information, did it change overnight? I don't know. But my most recent information is they're doing that on base when it's just, I imagine if they bring in an entire group of people like before, I don't want to say an entire unit. I don't know how they do what they do. But if it's a large number, of course, they're going to use the hotels on island. But if it's just a few, I would imagine they keep them on base, and certainly after they're positive, they're isolated on base.
Mm-hmm. Do you know if the military has any QFACs in local hotels? Or they're using any local hotels?
I don't think so. I think even when the Reef was involved, I don't think that was the facility that they used. I think it's just as not knowing how they do things, but I'm thinking that they see how many are coming and then they work it out with a local hotel at that point. Do they have ongoing MOUs? I don't know.
Okay.
But I know there's thousands that come to Island, and they always use the hotels for that because they don't have room on the base for that many people.
But we don't keep track of like where everybody, these deployed units, where they're staying or anything like that.
We're made aware, but they do their own monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
just like the Navy did when they used the hotels. They did that. They contained it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine after the success of Teddy Roosevelt and then what happened with this recent unit, I would imagine that it's going to be quite tight moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm asking it wrong. Do you know which hotels are housing unit?
Here it comes. Go ahead.
Do you know which Do you know which hotels are housing military service members that are deployed to Guam,
No,
but are
I
on
don't.
restricted movement?
I don't, but that generally would go to someone else anyway, so it doesn't mean anything that I don't know that. To whoever they report to, that doesn't trickle down my way. It's something I could find out, I guess, if they release that information.
Mm-hmm. I just wonder if that's something that public health should know as we monitor,
Right, yeah.
you know, who's coming in and out of.
People would. That's not normally. It's things have changed a little bit. The reportable diseases from the military previously went to our epidemiologists, territorial epidemiologists. But with COVID, everything's changed. So I was never in that line because it went to other people. Now with COVID, it's like all hands on deck, and I'm getting added to chat groups. I'm getting added to email, and because now it matters. Guam lives matter, and so now I'm involved in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm not in that loop. You know, where did you get that? But everything is having to be modified as we go along. So it's not that they're being secretive. That's just an email trail that I'm not in.
I see.
Doc, we were told that there was a connection between the recent positive at the Department of Corrections and the positive at the Guam Police Department. I think it was Dededo Precinct.
Yes, Dededo.
Can you give us any update on the contact trace investigation into the police department and the prison?
I haven't been made aware of a connection, but they will find one. They're always one part of what our team does is gets a really in-depth story from each of the patients, each of the COVID positives, and they track their movement. Then they grid this on boards, and they start drawing arrows when you see a pattern, and that's how we identify clusters. And we are finding less and less of a connection, an obvious connection. It's out in the community now.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there might be 2 or 3 from one facility, or so of course we look at that, but then you've got maybe 17 that aren't, and there's no obvious connection. So where'd it come from? We know it's in the community. So then we back up. If there's no obvious link that we can find, we continue doing our work and doing the contacts of those people, because now we know who has it. But we backed up and said, okay, what have we done? How has this happened? And I'll tell you where it seems to have started was when we lifted the restrictions on quarantine. Instead of going to the facility, which is tightly monitored, we permitted certain groups of people to go home and quarantine. And so do I think 100% of the people stayed in home quarantine? No, I do not. And I didn't think it before, but now we have people that have emergency releases from quarantine. They're able to go to funerals in the hospital, and, obviously, because people want to see their loved ones. But what do they do when they get in the car? And I know for a fact I know for a fact last week, I saw a breach myself and had to report it, because what they do when they get in the car is we don't have much control over, and they have permission to go out to certain functions. But what happens at the function? I saw one. I drove by a Rosary last week, and I didn't see a single mask. What I did see, maybe 60 cars, people in the front yard, and I didn't see a single mask. So that's how it happens. And with public health, we keep drilling. Early on, it was like, yeah. Wash your hands, wear your mask. I'm telling you that quarantine and your mask, you're washing your hands, and just quarantining as you're supposed to. That's the best vaccine we have right now.
Right, yeah.
And so what started off as a yeah, now it's like, oh my gosh, that is the only thing that works. That's the only thing we listed, and that's how it happened. And I went back through the numbers yesterday and reviewed with the team, and I said, is this from the airmen? Isn't that funny? The airmen went out. I don't know. I heard they wore masks, and they went to socially distancing establishments, and you can imagine people there had masks on except for when they were eating. But if they're so far away, they were still at a reduced risk. But what happened? It wasn't airmen with known disease. It's Guamanians, our own people, not just Guamanians. It's our own people dropping the guard a little and getting a little comfortable because our numbers, went down so much. Our numbers went into our boots, and everyone started relaxing a little. As you can imagine, I mean, everyone does that. We've done it. We will be in an office and, oh my gosh, I don't have my mask on. Everyone's done it. We got a little too comfortable, and so. No to airmen, but yes to our local population.
Can you tell us how many GPD officers have been tested as part of this trace investigation?
That I don't know. That's a nutty question. Okay. I know that they were doing certain pockets, like incoming travelers were being swabbed, and they will. I know that they will set up if they need to do a whole group, they'll just set up a location for that. And I think there's one that's coming up in Jigo that is specifically it's not for open to the whole community. And I think a release was done for that. I was trying to find it this morning, but it wasn't on anything that I could get my hands on. But be careful when you go to a certain screening, because it may be for a certain group of people.
Right.
And
so,
I don't want you to waste your trip.
Yeah. So when's the next mass testing that's going to be open to everybody, even without symptoms?
I'll have to get with Maddie. We did. Manila was yesterday, right. And they submitted 823 swabs.
Wow.
Which is a total record. Our poor team. I think they had so many cars in line at 11 o'clock, and this is maybe not the best intel, but they said no more, and there were like 250 cars at that point, and they actually finished after 4 or near 5, getting everyone done. But they'll be running those today. With that many, we're going to have to run some at our lab and use DLS as well. So I would look for those numbers to roll out over the next 2 or 3 days. And don't be surprised, we're going to find cases. And they may not be new cases, we don't know. But the more you test, the more you're going to see. So I expect to see the numbers to bump up a little just from the testing.
Doc, so again, you're just imploring people to wear the masks and to practice the social distancing and the good hygiene.
That is the only thing that has worked in our quarantine. That's the only thing that has worked. And if we continue doing it, we'll stay at 0. I think those numbers were probably already floating around, or the positive cases were floating around, but we stayed at 0 because everyone did what they were supposed to do.
Right.
And now that everyone's getting a little tired of it and a little complacent because, hey, we're not bad. And we have these numbers, but I think we still just have, knock on wood, but just one in the hospital.
Right.
So we're not And that's a big metric for us. If we have 10,000 in Guam with any infection and nobody in the hospital, we can at least breathe a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
If we have 10 cases and all 10 are in the hospital, that would be a little frightening.
Doc, do you have any update on the DOC contact trace investigation? There were 5 officers, at least as we know, as of yesterday, that were tested. Do you have anything?
If they were tested yesterday, they came in with the 823. And I do know those will be prioritized if they're contacts. I don't have any results for you yet on that.
Mm-hmm.
But, the hospitals always come first. Even if we do mass screenings, we still prioritize who gets run first. So I would look for those to roll out over the next couple of days.
Mm-hmm. What discussions are being made? Because the Physicians Advisory Group, you guys met last night?
We did.
Okay, can you provide us an update on what was discussed last night? Cliff Notes?
Not because it's a secret. It's because painfully for 2 hours, to be quite honest, we sat there looking at our protocols now for incoming travelers and where the hot spots are and who's a hot spot and how do we determine that. And oh my gosh, if we let our guard down here, then more of these are going to come in, and it's we're trying, and then we have something that's just beautiful. And Dr. Cabrera has just been phenomenal, and he must be so exhausted because he listens to everything we say and he tries to pin that for us and then present it, and then we all pick it apart, and then we had something that we thought was absolutely perfect, and the operationalization, long word, of that is going to be a bit of a challenge, trying to implement that at the level of the airport and customs and that sort of thing, because we can come out with a perfect plan, but it impacts so many people, and can it be done? I mean, do they have to fill out a 10-page questionnaire when they come through the airport? We see bottlenecks because we haven't had to do this before, and so what looks good on paper, sometimes when you start to implement that, it's met with challenges, and like, oh my gosh, we got to change again, and not having to do with the hot spots, but what can we actually do at the airport when they're coming in, and after they arrive, and testing after they arrive, testing before they get here. What's best? Because we said, a test would be great coming in. Well, great unless you're coming from Japan, where you can't get a test unless you're ill.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just walk in and get a test in Japan. So what? Those people can't come to Guam?
Mm-hmm. What about Dr. Cabrera? He was on earlier this week, and we were talking about home quarantine, and we brought to his attention one of our viewers about one of the protocols in the home quarantine guidelines, and that was allowing for individuals to go get takeout
or
and grocery shopping.
But
and
we understand that policy is changed effective today. Is that accurate?
But I didn't see anything in writing.
I didn't either.
So.
I could get back with you on that. I haven't seen anything that came through this morning.
Okay.
But we have a meeting at 8:30.
But I mean, it's just interesting if you're on home quarantine. You talked about some allowances are made to go attend a funeral or rosary or whatever, but like we'd just let people go to the grocery store or go grab takeout. It just kind of seems counterproductive.
Well, let's talk about that a minute. They have to eat, and so I'll have to see if there's been any change in that. But they were permitted to get essentials. But another point is that quarantine is different than isolation.
Right.
And we don't talk about that much, but quarantine are people that may have had an exposure, and we're going to watch those people for 14 days for any symptoms, and they're strictly monitored. But the isolation are cases those are cases that are positive, and so they would not have that freedom.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But people who are in the government quarantine facility, are they allowed to leave to go get groceries or to go get takeout?
They're not.
No, they're not. Yeah. But I mean, Doc, you can see if you're on the home quarantine because there may have been an exposure, and then you're out there gallivanting, and you give people an inch. It's just human nature. We tell them they could go get groceries, they go get takeout. Next thing you know, they're going to go to the gym. They're going to go here. You go
and
wherever.
That's what we've seen.
Right.
In the
Yeah,
last
exactly.
2 weeks. That's what we've seen.
And but we talk about the difference between quarantine and isolation. These are people in quarantine that we don't know if they have COVID because they haven't been tested, so they could be out there spreading it, right?
Which is exactly what I said.
Yeah.
We looked,
Yeah.
and we've had a little surge of cases, and so we went back to see where it come from. And it's really easy to say, please God, let it be all those airmen, and then because that was so easy to explain and made us all happy to think, aha, there's the smoking gun. Well, it wasn't. So then we scratch your head and you go back and then where have you been? What have you done? And the link to some we strive to find the link.
Right, because when you look at the SID report, it indicates whether or not the new case had recent travel history, right? But then there are a lot of them I haven't seen where it says recent travel history. So how are we saying it's individuals that are in home quarantine?
Well, sometimes it's not people in home quarantine. What we have in the community was it people who were supposed to be in home quarantine and they went out, and we don't know. That's what they're trying to do, and sometimes you end up with a pile of papers and you just can't find that link. But we know that when since we lifted and allowed for home quarantine, we have seen the cases come out. And now we can't prove it, but do the math.
Right. And so do you think that there's going to be any movement at all to change it?
We'll know more this morning because it's just hitting us now too with what the pattern is. But I think it might be a combination of maybe adjusting the freedom of movement. It may require testing at a certain day. We're looking at, like today, the traveler situation is in effect where there will be a different metric if you come in from a certain country and have had testing or haven't had testing. I think we have to, above all, stress to do what we were already doing, and because it worked. And so we may have to just, really, really tighten the message that we send to the community to please do what you were doing before because it worked. We may have had a lot of cases out there, but we didn't know it because people were doing what they were doing and we went to near zero. But then when it was relaxed a little bit, we've seen a trend. Is it due to that? It's looking like something like that has occurred. Yes.
All right.
Okay, Doc.
Gosh, we're not going to get rid of the test out, the 7-day test out for quarantine. Is that something that you guys are looking at getting rid of? Because that just went into effect today.
We'll have to see how that works. We'll have to see. Again, we take a step and then we see where we are.
Right.
And what we can do to mitigate that. So hold that thought. We're going to try it for now. And
give us a moment.
Yep. This probably won't change for a couple of weeks. Now, here's another thing. And that's for the inbound people. How many people do you think are going to come to Guam with what they're seeing on our numbers right now?
Right.
And also, on some reports, I was talking to the military yesterday, reports that they see include the ones from Teddy Roosevelt. So when you look at our case to population ratio, if you include all of those cases, which a lot of reports do through the DOD, of course they don't have any choice if they're sent here, but if I were in Japan, I would probably look at Guam and say, not right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to be looking at a large influx of people. Plus, another layer to that is if they come here and stay for a few days and then go back home, a lot of these countries have mandatory quarantine upon their return. So you have someone sitting there going, wait a minute, I'm going to go for a few days. I have to do all this test. It's in a hot spot, which they might look at us as that, with our recent numbers. And then I'm going to come back and stay in a hotel in my own country for 2 weeks. Don't think so.
Yeah.
I just whatever we do, I think we could say open up the borders completely,
Right.
and we might have one person coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
I know you got to go.
Yeah, we do.
I just think 1/2 hour more, and
I'd be glad to do it at 9 o'clock.
You would not. You're lying.
I totally would. I'd give you an hour.
Yeah.
Bree's leaving early today, so I need the company.
That's the start for me.
Okay.
But I'll keep you posted.
All right, Doc.
Thank you.
Right on.
Take home message, mask, wash the hands. I mean, those things have been effective. Guam, we just need to go back doing what we did before.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's only one in the hospital, so, we don't have to pull the fire alarm yet, but we need to get back to business.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Doc.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
take care.
Wash your hands.
Okay, bye.
Bye. 7:40. Dr. Manglotti, let's keep it going here. We wanted to get Administration Director Ed Byrne onto the show for an update. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
We're doing pretty good. I guess we'll just start with an update on the last time we had spoke. You told us that there were a bunch of applications for the Programas de Lapi that the department was reviewing. Can you give us
And yesterday was the deadline.
Right, okay. So just the status
yesterday
of that.
was the deadline for submission of incomplete applications.
Mm-hmm.
We're about halfway through. The report I got last night was that we were dealing with the applications that were received on May 15th. And May 13th, 14th, 15th is actually represents like 2/3 of the number of applications that we had.
Okay. So what about the status of checks? Are we going to see more checks come out anytime soon?
Yes, there have been. At the end of last week, about 600 checks were submitted to accounting to be cut, and those are being cut now. So we're working through it steadily. Of course, of those applications, roughly, so our estimate is roughly 2,000, which is about a quarter, are applications that have to be rejected because either the applicant has applied under another program, or the applicant had previously been recorded as a dependent and therefore had to be disallowed. So we're not obviously going to see 8,000 checks, but as we get through this program, those that are rejected will be told, and the reason for their rejection will be sent to them by public health.
Do you have an estimated time frame to complete the vetting process and cutting out the rest of the checks that are still at DOA?
Pending.
Well, the way we're going, it's going to take about another 2 weeks. Because as I say, we're through the bulk of it now.
And then you're doing this, but now we've just got this new program, the Mengafa.
Right. So we're going to get Senator Shelton on to talk about
that.
Right.
This is something you guys are going to have to handle as well?
Or is that Rev and Tax?
Rev and Tax will be doing the bulk of the work, but of course all the checks eventually have to come through us. But Rev and Tax will be doing the detailed work on that.
Okay.
So you're basically saying, and I missed it, but what's the balance of applications that you guys got to go through and process for payment?
It's about 3,000, but as I say, not all of that 3,000 will qualify for payment.
Correct.
We have to go through those 3,000.
And then you're anticipating a 2-week timeline to complete processing and paying out of those benefits.
Yes, of course that's subject to, Friday's a holiday, so
right.
But and that's obviously subject to any, like you say, new programs spring up all the time, and new issues spring up all the time. But that's our estimate at the moment.
Right. Okay.
All right. Anything else you would like to say?
I think you probably I think you're up to date with the unemployment checks.
Right.
Right.
But if there's another 41.5 million being issued at the end of this week, so that'll take the total to about 118 million.
Right. And that's, for people who are listening, that's the third batch.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Third batch.
I think Governor lost track of it. She said the second. It's actually the third.
Yeah, Hannah from DOL sent it out. This is going to be the third batch of it. The goal is to try and get it out by the end of this week, but because of the holiday, it might possibly come out next week.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Fortunately, as you know, most of these payments are EFT payments, which, it's really the very first time that the government has been able to do this, and it's obviously I've been trying to push this, and I know that Daphne Shinzu at DRT is trying to work on it too. It's a much more efficient way of making payments.
Right.
Oh yeah.
On the labor side, Ed, is it weekly? Is that the schedule that you guys are looking at keeping with releasing batches?
Yes. For the individual, it's every other week.
Okay.
But we're going to try and, but it's easier, for us obviously, to manage the large numbers if we try and do it every week, or do roughly half of it every week. Once we get the initial applications all paid.
Is there any type of bottleneck? Do you have enough staff to handle all the different things you guys are doing? The different new things.
Well, yeah, as I say, you never know what's going to turn up. But I would like to, say thank you to all my staff who really stepped up to the mark and worked really, really hard, both during the period when most of the government was closed down and afterwards. And they've been able to throughput a very great deal, and these are all new programs. These are all things that we really haven't had to do before. And so I'm very proud of the people at DOA and the other people in the government that have put this huge effort into this. But thank you for that. And I hope, that some of these programs obviously go on to the end of the year, like the unemployment program.
Right.
The program Salafi is a one-off, but we don't know what conditions are going to be like towards the end of the year, so we must always be prepared to stand up another program.
Right.
Are you guys also doing anything with the Gita Small Business Program? You guys aren't.
We cut the checks for that too.
Oh. Do you have a update on that one?
And we're on the ninth. We're on the ninth batch
of the small business.
Yes.
How much have you guys paid out?
I don't have an exact number, but I think it's around about 3 million.
Okay.
And we're involved in that too.
Right. Do you have a maybe just ballpark number of checks so we can just divide that and get the average?
The average check is, well, that's really hard to say.
Or just the number of checks that you guys have cut?
It's kind of, so far it's about 1,000 checks.
Okay.
But I've just got a new batch, came last night, so we'll put that in for processing.
Right. I know you're not the tax refund guy, but people asking about update on 2019 tax refund payments.
There is we're trying to pay them out each week. Again, this week is a short week. It makes it difficult. But there's another batch coming out, and I don't want to tell you how much yet because DRT hasn't released the amount. But there's another batch coming out that will be in the mail either late Thursday or early Monday.
All right. Well, all right. Well, thank you, Mr. Byrne. But before, go ahead.
Okay.
Chris has something else.
No, go ladies first.
No, I know. We were probably going to ask the same thing.
Are we going to ask? Are you resigning or are you retiring?
No, I have no plans. Why do you ask?
Well, because it's going around.
Oh, I see.
Just in case.
Have you been You've been in Yokoi's cave for the last couple weeks, or I know you're out sick, but yeah, there's been some changes when you go back to work. You might notice.
Yeah, I went back on Monday for half day.
Like, hey, who's at the airport? What the?
Where's Linda?
Where's Hi?
I know, but I can rely upon you to keep me up with the news.
Right. Yeah, we got you.
Yeah.
I'll put you on our mailing list. All right, so you're not going anywhere.
I'm
I'm still here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne, and everybody at DOA.
Wash your hands, and I hope your printer doesn't catch on fire from printing all those checks.
Yes.
Knock on.
Thank you. Keep safe, both of you.
All right. Wash your hands. Thanks. 7:48. Hey, we're going to take a short break, and he talked a little bit about the Mangafa program, which was a bill introduced by Senator Amanda Shelton that the governor allowed to lapse into law.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get Senator Shelton on to talk about the implementation of this law and how soon we could start seeing some checks for those who are eligible for this new CARES Act assistance program. It's 7:49, containing COVID. Good morning.
Ambrose Inc. Keeping you informed. KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Keeping you informed. KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
It's not always easy trying something new. Sometimes you have to help your loved ones along. Nana is so used to her weekly trips to the bank that going online can be a little scary for her. But her grandson knows that banking online is safer and easier. So he's teaching her how to get started using Bank of Guam's online banking videos. Teaching is one way to show our loved ones we care, keep your family safe at home, and show them how to bank online. Find easy-to-use online banking tutorials at bankofguam.com or on our Instagram and Facebook pages. Bank of Guam, member FDIC.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
Now feel the flow in the mustache.
Oh God, there's a funny comment here. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, like the Programa Salapi Paritata with the rate that it's going. It should be the Problema Salapi.
That's funny.
It's what? I'm sorry, what was that?
It should be the Problema Salapi. 7:55 containing COVID. Let's go right to the phone.
I'm just sitting here.
I know.
Yeah, there's some.
Just don't look at it. Okay?
There's some trouble in paradise between you two this morning. Huh?
There's a wire there that's making a noise that's hurting my head. At 7:55, we talk about assistance programs. There is another one that was just recently allowed to lapse into law, the Mangafa assistance program. We'll bring on the author of that, Senator Amanda Shelton. And good morning, Senator.
How's today? Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
We just wanted to kind of get an update on the implementation of this law. Where are we with that, and what process do we need to kind of jump through? If you could just give us an update.
Sure, thank you. So on June 26th, the governor wrote to the speaker that she was allowing the Bill 367, the bill to lapse into law because of some provisions that happened on the floor. So instead of signing it into law, she let it lapse into law. So now the bill allows for 30 days for the program to be established. And so I'm going to be working closely with the Department of Rev and Tax over the next couple of days to make sure that we have everything in order and we can start accepting the applications to get this $500 for each dependent to families who were left out of the stimulus program because their dependents were aged out of that category.
Right, and that's over 16.
Yes, so if you have a dependent who's over 16, maybe you have a young adult living in your house who's your dependent and attends the University of Guam or Guam Community College, or is still a junior or a senior in high school, this would be a program for you. Or if you have an adult individual with disability who is your dependent, who was also left out of the stimulus program that you did not receive a payment for, then this is what you would apply for.
Mm-hmm. Do we know how many people were talking? That would be.
We still don't have an exact number of the individuals with disabilities who are dependents, but we have rough numbers from the Department of Education and from the University of Guam and from the Guam Community College, about 4,000 students in each of those. So that's what we're looking at right now, that who we think will qualify. So we won't know until people start applying. And so we hope that to get the word out to let them know that this is a program that's going to happen very soon.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys already have the draft application and are what sort of documents are required, if any?
Well, I'm going to be meeting with Rev and Tax in the next couple of days to start discussing that. But I know that they've already have had their internal discussions. So I can't say exactly what they have ready to roll out, but we're going to meet very soon.
Mm-hmm. And you said you're going to be meeting with DRT?
Yes.
Okay, and so I know Daphne, she's very much into technology, And are you foreseeing? She really is. Yeah. Do you foresee this being a process where people can apply electronically?
Well, I hope that's what it will be, that they'll be able to do everything online so that we can continue with the social distancing. They won't have to line up. I know that Reventax is really overwhelmed with so many different things just trying to catch up. And so I hope that this will run smoothly online and any way that's accessible to the people who need to apply for this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that is my hope, an online process.
Okay.
And within 30 days, right?
Yeah, within 30 days to stand it up. So I know that Daphne, we're going to start talking about all of the details and what she foresees as some of the issues we may have and how we can address that together moving forward. So I'm really looking forward to making everything work and to make it work seamlessly so that we can get this money into the hands of our people.
Right. And so, again, it's $10 million?
Yes, so the authorized amount was $10 million, and so we learned that night in session when we were discussing the bill that the CARES Act money would be available. Right. So the language of the bill says that we'll have to expend the CARES Act money that is available before touching any of our local dollars.
Right. And that's still going to be available, right? Everything is still set with DOA.
Okay.
Yes, so in the bill, now in the law, it still provides that we can use the general fund or special funds for this program.
Right. Do you anticipate that happening?
No, I don't. I don't anticipate that. I anticipate that we're going to be using CARES Act money to pay for this. That was what was assured to us on the floor that night, that there was enough CARES Act money to carry out this program.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, we just wanted, because people were asking us about it, and I wanted to just get you on and really just find out about implementation status. But we're getting Daphne tomorrow, so we can also follow up with
that. Yeah, but if you do have any updates, like in terms of like what documents are going to be required, I mean, please let us know so we can get the word out as soon as possible before people actually go out and apply.
We will, of course, do that. Thank you so much for helping to get the word out for every program, for all the testing. Thank you so much, you guys. And I want to say thank you very much to the people of Guam for going out to get tested and waiting in line, and all of our public health workers and just everyone who's doing their part to stay safe and to help us understand the spread of this virus in our community. So thank you. And like you always say, Chris, wash your hands.
I just did.
Wear your mask.
Wear your mask. There you go.
Right Thank you, Senator. You wash your hands.
Okay, take care.
Okay.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. 801. Good morning. Good morning, Guam. We're KUAM-FM in Hagåtña. Hi, TV11.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us on TV11. Remember, 8 to 10, we throw the last half of the show onto KUAM TV. It is the KUAM News Takeover, Guam's favorite, containing COVID. We're KUAM-FM 93.9, Hagåtña. And it's all proudly brought to you by Ambrose Inc., IT&E, Coast 360, Calvo Enterprises, and the Bank of Guam. It is containing COVID. So many ways to catch the show right here on the radio, where there's an audio stream, Docomo Channel 10. Again, KUAM TV 11. Good morning on you. And last but not least, on the Edward R. Murrow award-winning social media networks of KUAM, on our KUAM News Facebook page. Thank you guys so much. Good morning, Jason.
Hey, Hafide, good morning. I wanted to just like throw like a little bit of a little footnote, if I may, because you guys were just mentioning our friend Daphne Shimizu, director of Reventax. She's obviously going to come on the show, if not today, then tomorrow to talk about. Yeah. She is a woman of many talents, as you know. You said she likes technology a lot. She's also, I saw this weekend when we were streaming the Mass, which we do every Sunday at 9:30 on our Facebook page. She's also a very, very good lectern. She went up and she had a reading, and she read some of the scripture, and she went there, and part of the Mass was her responsibility, and she was very good.
Yeah, she's actually in. It turned me on to like a prayer group that so they do a prayer. I think it's like 7:14. I want to say it's either 7:14 or 7:17, and the time they get it from a Bible verse. So there was one time I scheduled her on the show for 7:15, and she was like, "I should just be finishing my morning prayer. So I guess in this group they all do a prayer at a certain time. There's a bunch of groups like that. So,
But there is one other thing that was very distinct about the mass we had this past Sunday. I don't know if you guys caught it. To the best of my understanding, because it was a group of young children and they were receiving communion for the very first time, or they had completed CCD and Esquilum, and that was the first group, I believe. Because how often, Chris, do the classes graduate and they have
every year?
It's annually? It's just one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So obviously this was the first one this year, but that was a big, you saw in the comments and you saw the way people were reacting. They were like, even though obviously you said, we may be in the middle of this big like increase of infections and everything like that, that was a really good moment to see, and people really enjoyed that.
It's a really special moment when you see that and you witness that happening. I know when my son received First Holy Communion.
Wait, is it only really once per year? I thought it was like biannually, or
no, I think it's every school year.
Or maybe once every quarter.
Don't quote me on it, but
every year.
Right.
Okay, but that was a really, and all the kids, they all dressed nice. The young boys had like their ties on and nice shirts, but they were all socially distant. They all masked up.
Yeah,
they were doing the right thing, and it was a nice moment. It was good for our community.
Yesterday we were watching that clip, the crying clip from Containing COVID. Yeah, and so this was a conversation.
You're a crying clip.
Yeah, I cried. There's a few times we cried on the show, but it was with Father Paul, and during it was during Holy Week, and we were talking about how COVID stole so much from the faithful. So you're right, Jay. It is. It's a good thing to see that and to see them doing that again.
But we must say, and Sabrina actually produced a public service announcement that we've got. We put it on. It's on our Instagram right now. If you guys want to check it out, it's on our Twitter. We're at KUN News all over social media. But we basically all came together as a team and as a family and just said, like, okay, we're not out of the woods just yet. We finished what we start. You got to keep fighting. You got to keep doing what's right. And each one of us, jumped at the opportunity to do that, to tell our friends and neighbors, like, look, we still got to do this.
Yeah.
We still got to do this.
And yours was particularly emotional. I know. Yeah, I mean, again, I've worked with you for like 15 years now. I've seen you do numerous, stand-ups and voiceovers and everything like that.
Mr. Embellish.
Oh goodness. Go for it. No, continue. Yeah.
No, it's like yours was very yours is very heartfelt. Yeah,
I take it serious. We got to wear the masks. We have to. It's what's working. You know what I mean? And people, they argue like, oh well, there's no emergency because we haven't had the numbers that they predicted. Well, we haven't had the numbers that they predicted because we've been doing our part. It's pretty simple. I don't get how stupid you must be if you don't understand that. So wear your masks, wash your hands, practice social distancing, be safe, just in case.
Yeah.
It's the 1st of July, so let's go ahead and we'll jump into news now. Everybody, please rise for the playing of the national anthem and the Guam hymn.
By the dawn's early light.
Vanogita moru purita nonda kantai mantunat nyagi toru ilugar para honra para gloria abiba islasen para honra para gloria abiba islasen para todo y tempo y paz para ita dan gini langit na bendición contra y peligro na fan sa fuham Deus protegis languam contra y peligro na fan sa fuham Deus protegis languam.
It's not always easy trying something new. Sometimes you have to help your loved ones along. Nana is so used to her weekly trips to the bank that going online can be a little scary for her. But her grandson knows that banking online is safer and easier. So he's teaching her how to get started using Bank of Guam's online banking videos. Teaching is one way to show our loved ones we care. Keep your family safe at home and show them how to bank online. Find easy-to-use online banking tutorials at bankofguam.com or on our Instagram and Facebook pages. Bank of Guam, member FDIC.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Good morning. 8:11. Come and get your news. Mila. It's 8:11 again. It's KUM News Takeover, Guam's favorite containing COVID. Coming up from the Physicians Advisory Group, we'll be talking with pediatrician Dr. Michael and he's going to be sharing some of the findings. They did a small school study at the Japanese School of Guam, and the purpose of this study was to see the different ways that they could open schools again while practicing all the different COVID-19 mitigation measures. So we'll catch up with Dr. and find out how they're going to use that study and apply it, or try to apply what they learned to the different schools that we're going to see reopening here hopefully next month. 8:12. Let's do a dive into the day's COVID-19 headlines from the KUAM News team with the very latest. Good morning, Sabrina Salas Matanani.
Off day, good. As more positive cases to report, public health ran 266 tests on Tuesday and 2 returned positive. As reported yesterday, 2 also tested positive, and according to Public Health's updated situation report, one of those new cases tested positive through diagnostic laboratory services and was identified through contact tracing and was from the same household. Yesterday's second new case tested positive at the Department of Defense and reported recent travel history from the U.S. mainland. This case was identified while in quarantine. As for an update on the contact tracing investigation at the Department of Corrections, Major Antone Uggan confirms 5 officers were tested and they are still waiting for the results. As for contact tracing investigations involving an officer that tested positive at the Dededo precinct, GPD spokesperson Paul Tapao confirmed several officers have been tested and they are waiting for those results as well. He adds that officers have been placed on quarantine. GPD is working with those officers and their families to assist with their needs. Additionally, the Dededo precinct remains open. Tapao adds they are moving officers around to cover down the various shifts as a result of what is happening at the precinct. The total number of confirmed cases is now 259, with 5 deaths, 179 recoveries, and 75 active cases. 215 are civilians and 44 are military. In the nation's capital, a hearing was held early this morning examining the impact of COVID-19 to U.S. territories. Here is Congressman Michael San Nicolas.
Good afternoon and Hafaday, Chairwoman Murkowski, Ranking Member Manchin, and members of the committee. I want to thank you for your leadership and advocacy in our combined efforts to provide equitable access of federal resources to the people of Guam and our U.S. territories in this global fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. In assessing our COVID-19 circumstances and evaluating what further action must be taken federally in order to fully meet the needs of our territories, we can find one very specific parallel to the pandemic itself. Pre-existing conditions exacerbate risk factors. For Guam in particular, the pre-existing conditions of unfunded earned income tax credit mandates, the lack of supplemental security income applicability, and the underfunded costs of the migratory impacts and the compacts of free association left us vulnerable and stall our efforts to recover. From inception, the EITC costs for Guam have ballooned to roughly 30% of total income tax refund liabilities on Guam. The very nature of the EITC is that it is intended to pay a qualified recipient an amount in excess of their total banked income tax withholdings in order to incentivize work. While the EITC as a broad federal program is sustainable, with the U.S. Treasury able to fund those costs using various deficit spending tools, applying them to Guam and leaving Guam to fund them is wholly unsustainable because the territory does not have similar access to such tools. As a result of this pre-existing condition, Guam's capacity to meet COVID-19 threats was greatly diminished, with less facility readiness and nurse recruitment and retention already inadequate to meet Guam's needs. The Congress must see to it that the federal government absorbs the cost of EITC by permanently funding it on a reimbursement basis in the territories. Additional thought should be put into a Federal Reserve facility to capitalize EITC costs to territories and direct payments from the Treasury to the Fed at the close of the fiscal year to reconcile it. When the pandemic struck and our tourism-based economy contracted, we have seen many families go from making ends meet to not being able to provide. We must recognize the pre-existing challenges facing our at-risk community and how their situations went from bleak to destitute as a result of the pandemic. At its core, Supplemental Security Income, SSI, is intended to serve as a lifeline for those who qualify, particularly the aged and the disabled, who otherwise would have little means to provide for their basic needs. The lack of SSI on Guam means that thousands of children and families go without what otherwise would be a staple of American decency throughout this country. Prior to the pandemic, this at-risk group was cared for by aging parents and gracious family members, many of whom worked multiple jobs to supplement the cost of living and care for their loved ones. This pre-existing condition already strained households, and the economic savaging of the pandemic has caused people to not only lose their jobs, but lose the ability to care for the disabled loved ones who would be supported by SSI had they not been statutorily excluded. The Congress must end the discriminatory exclusion of territories from SSI. Recent federal court rulings are already indicating that such an outcome is forthcoming. It will be both pragmatic and magnanimous for the Congress to fully extend SSI to the territories, particularly during these COVID-19 times, so that the people most in need, even before the pandemic, are finally made whole during the pandemic. As the renegotiations for the Compacts of Free Association implementation agreements begin in earnest, we must be mindful of how the pre-existing condition of these agreements have created critical health, education, and public safety vulnerabilities in the territory of Guam. To avail of the freedom to migrate, COFA citizens must either be doing so for education, healthcare, or employment. The costs associated with hosting COFA migrants under either of these three prerequisites have vastly exceeded current funding levels. In 2019, the rate of federally funded compact impact per COFA migrant was $892. which is far short of the cost to educate at over $9,000, the cost for government health care at almost $3,000, and the cost of EITC should they be working and receiving that benefit at $2,800 on a per-citizen basis on Guam. These shortfalls create real systemic imbalances and ripe pre-existing conditions for COVID-19 to go untested, untreated, or undiagnosed, as COFA migrants are ineligible for Medicaid coverage and the cash shortfall of underfunded migratory costs overburden the systems of care. The Congress must strive to provide as much balance as possible to the costs associated with hosting COFA migrants, as failure to do so comes at a cost to the health, education, and public safety institutions provided by host communities. The Congress must also extend the applicability of Medicaid to COFA migrants as a common sense component of the authorized migratory purpose of seeking health care, and further consider extending Medicaid directly into COFA states as a means to ameliorate health care migration at the source. Addressing these pre-existing conditions will certainly improve the outcome of all COVID-19 relief provided and permanently strengthen the Guam community to better withstand any future threats. While they represent long-standing issues within the territory of Guam, these pandemic circumstances have revealed the structural weaknesses caused by their systemic corrosion. To ensure our COVID-19 relief efforts are fully effective, and to ensure that Guam and our territories are properly situated for any future risks, we must address the EITC, SSI, and COFA inequities now, not later. Thank you, Chairwoman Murkowski and Ranking Member Manchin and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify before you today. I stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chairwoman Murkowski and Ranking Member Manchin and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify before you today. I stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so very much.
Again, that was Congressman Michael St. Nicholas speaking today on a hearing in the nation's capital examining the impact of COVID-19 to U.S. territories. You could find the link to that hearing in our comments, and you can watch the whole thing for yourself. After working with the University of Guam, Guam Community College, Guam Department of Education, public charter schools, private schools, and the telecommunications companies, the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration has developed a plan for the use of $12.5 million in education stabilization funds made available through CARES Act funds to address the impact of COVID-19 on the educational system. Under Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio's oversight, education stabilization funds will be subgranted to elementary and secondary schools as well as institutions of higher education to provide maximum access to distance learning. Initiatives include vouchers for students to purchase and access internet services necessary for remote learning. At institutions of higher education, students will be provided rebates or refunds for all or a portion of the technology, internet, and computer student fees charged for the fall 2020 and spring 2021 semesters. Money may also be used to develop and enhance programming such as PBS University, a project collaboration with GDOE, which supplements distance education efforts led by teachers. The Guam Public Library System will also receive money to increase bandwidth to allow increased access to online materials prepared by the GDOE and private schools. Funds are anticipated to be immediately available for use in the upcoming school year. Meanwhile, the Guam Department of Education will be holding a press conference today to provide an update on the reopening of the school year, and that will be streaming on Facebook. The governor has issued a new executive order establishing a new Office of Homelessness Assistance and Poverty Protection within the Mayor's Council. She also repealed and reconstituted the members of the Interagency Council on Homelessness to be chaired by the Lieutenant Governor, a representative from the Mayor's Council, the GURA Director, the Guam Housing Corporation President, the Regional Transit Authority Manager, a member of the Homeless Coalition, and a member from the public at large. Appearing on Containing COVID yesterday, Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio said the mayors will be an important part in solving the homelessness puzzle. We now bring in Tomas Manglonia. Okay, no, we're not. The Guam Election Commission, in the meantime, will meet on Friday to go over the list of candidates that have filed for candidacy in the upcoming primary election. In the senatorial race, there are 16 Republican candidates. On the Democrat side, 16 Democrat candidates, starting with the Republicans. Seeking a seat in the 36th Guam legislature are Telo Taitagui, an incumbent, Ryan Calvo, Tony Ada, James Moylan, Vincent Borja, J.I. Cruz, Joaquin Leon Guerrero, Sandra Seau, Dominic Hernandez, Mary Torres, who is also an incumbent, Luis Muñoz, Frank Blas Jr., Michelle Armenta, Joanne Brown, former Senator Chris Duenas, and Don Ed Quilani. On the Democrat side, also seeking a seat is incumbent Tina Muñoz-Barnes, Amanda Shelton, Kelly Marsh-Titano, Josen Augustine, Therese Terlahi, Clint Rigel, Dave Duenas, John Anninich II, Jose Pito Terlahi, Fred Berdallo Jr., Franklin Meno, Frank Leon Guerrero, the committee to draft former Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr., Talina Nelson, Sabina Perez, and Christopher Carrillo. In the race for the delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives, on the Democrat side, it is incumbent Michael St. Nicholas and former Congressman Robert Underwood, and then on the Republican side, it is Will Castro. You can see the list at gec.guam.gov. As reported, the GEC, in the meantime, will be verifying the candidates and then draw for ballot placement during Friday's meeting. In national news, Dr. Anthony Fauci warns that the United States could see 100,000 new cases of coronavirus a day if the surge continues. That's up from the 41,000 new cases reported yesterday. The nation's top infectious disease expert made the comment on Capitol Hill, where federal health officials are testifying about plans to reopen schools and workplaces. Chris Martinez reports from Los Angeles, where county officials announced a record high increase in cases.
Dr. Anthony Fauci testified at a Senate hearing Tuesday as more than 30 states report rising numbers of coronavirus cases.
We've got to get that message out that we are all in this together. And if we are going to contain this, we've got to contain it together.
In Arizona, where hospitalizations are increasing, the governor ordered the closure of bars, gyms, movie theaters, and water parks for the next 30 days.
We want to slow the spread of this. We want to stop the spread.
Arizona has the highest rate of positive tests in the country, ahead of Florida and Nevada. Nearly 24% of tests there have come back positive over the last 7 days. That's compared to just 7% nationally. The World Health Organization says the rate should be at 5% before states decide to reopen. In California, hospitalizations are up roughly 43% in the last 2 weeks. Here in Los Angeles County, they're closing beaches and banning fireworks displays for the 4th of July weekend. On Monday, 3 counties closed bars voluntarily after the governor ordered bars closed in 7 other counties.
I understand it. I don't like it, but we got to do it.
At least 16 states are re-implementing or extending restrictions on bars and restaurants. It comes after health officials in Michigan linked more than 100 COVID cases to a bar in East Lansing. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
New York City's mayor cited the Michigan bar as one reason he's delaying the reopening of indoor dining at restaurants in New Jersey, put off allowing any indoor dining as well. In your Banking 671 report, anyone can be a victim, but there are some precautions you can take to safeguard your personal and financial identity. Be mindful of phishing schemes, unsolicited emails, and text messages that include links to phony, look-alike financial websites or even companies that you know or do business with. Be cautious with information you share on social networking sites, and don't post things like your address, phone number, date of birth, email, or social security. You should know that by now. Never release any of your personal identifying information, credit card or bank account numbers over the telephone or via text message. It is important to pay close attention to your surroundings, whether at home or while you are out and about. Do not leave credit or debit card receipts lying around or in shopping bags. At an ATM or checking out at the store, use your hand to shield your PIN if there are people standing too close to you. That is your Banking 671 report, brought to you by the Bank of Guam and Coast 360. And that is your news.
Thank you, Sabrina.
You're welcome, Mr. Telephone Man.
What do you think, though, of these the candidate list?
What do you mean? What do
That's
I think?
Such a loaded question to ask you.
I know. I honestly, I thought there was going to be more.
Better candidates?
Just more candidates.
Yeah. I think my first takeaway was disappointment. Sorry, I just was disappointed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like,
I thought there was going to be more. I was disappointed that there wasn't.
I thought there were going to be more, and they're going to be more better.
Mm-hmm. How much of it do you think, though, is because of what's happening right now? It's just too much to handle, or just too much.
Yeah, I think.
Really, I mean, we're looking at what next year. We don't know what's going to happen with the government's finances. Really tough decisions are going to have to be made.
Not only that, I'm pretty sure there are people who were thinking about running before the COVID, and then the COVID hit, and it just, so. What I think is interesting is who's finding the time to run and why they're running. And I think that, man, honestly, this election is going to be, it's very easy to manipulate this election.
Why say that?
Because, like you said, there are just certain conditions that prevented really good candidates from running. And I just feel like...
Is there somebody on this list that you...
There's a few people I just feel like, no, they cannot be.
No, I mean people that, that are not on this list that you heard were contemplating running and didn't?
Not necessarily, but, we saw former Senator Dennis Rodriguez, they picked up a packet, so I was kind of thinking maybe former Senator Frank Uggan might come back on the scene. Of course, we weren't sure about Ray Tenorio either, so because usually you have that when people run for governor and they lose, then they come back and run for senator. But there are also some other names that were being thrown around that we didn't end up seeing. And I mean, looking at this list of candidates, oh man, it's like you got some pretty good people and then drop off to the Marianas Trench. Wow, but you know what? At the end of the day, I usually only vote for 2 or 3 people, if that. And I think it's going to be interesting, man, because the Democrats have really made a bed for themselves that they might not want to lie in. And it all goes back to the checks and balances. The legislature is supposed to be its own branch of government. Oh, Civics 101, but they're basically an extension, for the most part, of the executive branch. And we've seen that this coalition, if you will, between the administration and those certain senators who always vote however Lou says to vote, I think it's really damaged that supermajority for the Democrats. And so the Republicans are coming and they smell blood in the water. And it's not just them. You've also got other people who, I think they got to get the people of Guam to figure out just who they are. 16 on each side. That means there's only going to be one loser.
Yeah,
which
at
means
least in the primary,
right?
And then
a lot of these people are going to be going into the general, and it's just, I don't know. That's why I think, man, you guys really got to register to get out and vote. Let's not let anybody steal this election from us. I know it's tough with the COVID and everything, but I'm inspired and hopeful by the turnout in the Jotnia special election. I mean, they had pretty much record turnout. And I don't know how to interpret that. I think part of it is that people just felt like they were held hostage during the well, they were, because we're all under house arrest or whatever. But they wanted to get out and do something and make a difference. And so I hope that carries on into the primary election and the general election, because the voter turnout last election, not really where we wanted it to be. And I think it's really interesting that we have some total newbies here, because there were some lessons I think that voters should have learned by electing total newbies in the last term. You know what I mean? Some of these senators that we elected, they don't even know which hand to raise when they're trying to make a motion. And you've seen it. If you watch session, you're like, wow, you are clueless. So it's going to be a tough balance. I mean, I think that the voters are going to look at people who have experience and think maybe we need more experience in there, and they're also going to be looking for people who I believe are going to be independent minded and willing to hold the other branches of government accountable no matter what party they're in. And I mean, that's how I vote. I look for people who aren't going to be yes people. And so I think it was interesting. There's a lot of posturing going on with the incumbents during the pandemic, where you had these any senators, all of a sudden they wanted to hold the administration accountable and, call for transparency. And I think it's because they stuck their finger in the wind and saw that, the mayors, the doctors, the public, they're all calling for the same thing. And so these senators, they're smart when they need to be. And they just saw the writing on the wall. Whoa, everybody's hating on Lou. We better call for, we better look independent here. But I'm not sure if that's going to carry on into the election because maybe it was too far back for people to remember. So I don't know, Bree. That's my 1 cent. I'll give you the other penny later.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
Right. So it's 8:33. Let's switch gears a little bit. And this is something that you were really interested in. I think it's pretty cool, too. It's this small school study they conducted at the Japanese School of Guam from the Governor's Physicians Advisory Group. I'll bring on Dr. Michael as a pediatrician who you kind of like led this study, right, Doc?
Or project, pilot project.
Yeah, pilot project.
Well, I didn't really lead it, but yeah, the educational subcommittee helped the Japanese school get their guidelines together.
Right.
And so initially after the first couple weeks now, what we've seen so far has been very encouraging. It looks like the kids have kind of gotten used to all the safety and hygiene measures. Hasn't proven to be too cumbersome for people. And it looks like now they're kind of getting back into the swing of things. And I guess we're seeing what the new normal is starting to look like. There's definitely been some lessons that we've gotten, some good takeaways that we've got away from this. Chief among them is that while most of the parents were quite okay with the safety measures that were put in place, there were a small percentage that were on either end of the spectrum. Some thought it was too lenient, and some thought it was not enough. And so what the Japanese school mentioned was that how the importance of communicating with the parents and the kids. They were already, I think, had some meetings and set out some notices, but to really explain to them what to expect on that first day, and maybe even have, if they could do it again, maybe even do like a walkthrough for the parents and the kids to really see what everything was about. Some other things were there. I guess they have some annual events that the kids really look forward to. The one I heard about was a big pool party for the whole school, and of course, that's not really something that's feasible right now, but the kids didn't know that was going to be taken away from them. So setting expectations early might be a very important step for that. And then one really important thing that I was surprised when I first heard about it, but it really made a lot of sense, was that initially the kids and staff were getting more tired, and especially as the day went on, they seemed to be, less engaged. And, you could attribute a little bit of that to they had a long break, and now they're kind of back in school with these kind of longer days. And, maybe the mask in class was kind of making them, a little distracting them. But there were some anecdotal reports that some of the students were showing some signs of elevated stress and anxiety. And this is kind of an important thing that I think often gets overlooked. And I think the AP really, the American Academy of Pediatrics recently put out a thing on school guidelines too, talking about the mental health aspect for kids. And so I'm sure most kids will do okay, but there's definitely going to be some kids who have a higher level of stress with kind of everything that's going on. And this would be a good opportunity while we're still waiting for school to open for parents to sit down, talk with their kids, and just see what kind of questions and fears that their children might have, just so they don't feel too anxious or nervous when they're finally leaving the safety of their home, the usual routine they've been having or no routine for the past few months, and then getting back to school with the environment that they haven't been used to in a while.
Doc, can you just take us back? How many, what was the sample size? How many students are we talking about?
Oh, so the Japanese school has about 60 students.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how did this work? So you monitored all of the classes, and what were some of the things they did? Like they put up plexiglass. I'm just not real familiar, and they were required to wear masks in the classroom, but not during recess.
Mm-hmm. So what they did, so let's see, starting from the beginning, they would, as the kids got dropped off, they would have staggered drop-off times. They would be greeted by a staff member up front. They get the temperature taken, showed their symptom checklist sheet. And then after they go in, and for visitors or anybody else that wants to check in, there would be a separate office entrance that, with plexiglass and sign-in sheet and hand sanitizers. And then in class, the Japanese school opted to wear masks during class for all the kids. And same with the teachers. and they also put in some sinks. They had some outdoor sinks that I believe weren't in use, but they fix them up, and so outside of the bathrooms, before they go in, they wash their hands. When they come out, they wash their hands. Having it outside makes it easier for people just kind of monitor them. Of course, they're obligated to wash their hands like before and after eating, etc. On the playground, I think they weren't mandated to wear masks if they didn't want to. I think a lot of some parents felt much more comfortable if they did. So that was something that came up, and some parents were, just had a lower threshold on what they were comfortable with. And for the first 2 weeks, they actually started with a shorter school day, and I think that was very instrumental in helping them kind of ease into it and get the kids used to it.
And how long were they in school? How long were you monitoring them? For 3 weeks?
Yeah, so far, so they've been back. They must have just finished their third week of school. We weren't monitoring them like daily, like we weren't going there watching, but we did check in weekly with the Japanese school to see how things were going. What could be better, what would they change.
What are the takeaways that we're looking to apply from this experience and apply them to other school reopenings that we're looking at happening in the very near future?
So the big thing is, and DOE and the other school and the Catholic schools and private schools have already been doing this really well, is that planning is just so huge to really just thoroughly sit and plan and try to anticipate everything that can come up. Overall, I was pretty impressed that there weren't major hiccups with the pilot study, but then again, there were hours and hours and several meetings to try to figure out like what could work. And this was for a relatively small school, so with the bigger schools, it's just going to be that much more important to figure out the nuances of how to implement like our overall safety guidelines that come out. And then of course the communication between parents and with the parents, students, and the schools is going to be of utmost importance.
And again, these kids, they don't ride a school bus, right? They are dropped off by their parents to school.
Yes, I think they had a very small percentage that last year might have taken school bus, but no, for now, all these kids were being dropped off at school.
Is that some of the discussions the Physicians Advisory Group is having regarding children that are going to be, riding the school bus? How are they going to maintain social distancing?
That's something that DOE's already kind of, thought of. And yes, it's going to be difficult with the school buses. I know DOE has thoughts in mind about splitting up their school schedule. I'm going to leave let them give you the specifics of, but if that's the case, then you're only going to have a fraction of the kids actually being present in class, and that'll kind of relax some of the, closeness on the school bus for a lot of these kids. So.
And not only the closeness, but, when we last spoke with Jess, they were still trying to figure out if they were still going to use these school buses to transport people to government quarantine facilities.
Oh, well, I don't know about how they're going to actually utilize school buses, so sorry. I don't know if that was
no, it's okay. So was there anything else about the findings of this pilot project? Is this the only school? I know we talked about the Sylvan Learning Center. Is this the only one that you guys have been monitoring? Or
yeah, so this was the only school that was in the pilot project. We decided as a group yesterday at our meeting to recommend to the governor to allow like the commercial learning centers to kind of open up looking at this.
Like tutors and stuff?
Yes. And so we're still pretty confident that definitely with the smaller schools, it should be relatively easy to implement and not too difficult for students and teachers to get used to it. It'll just be a bigger challenge just due to the sizes of the bigger schools.
Mm-hmm.
What about anything else from a pediatric standpoint relative to COVID-19 outside of the school study? Because we really only recently folded you into the conversation. So I guess just from a pediatric standpoint, relative to COVID-19, what are some of the key things that parents need to know and remember?
The first thing is, overall, kids who are over the age of 1 and before they get to their teenage years seem to do really well with COVID just around the world. So I see parents that understandably get very nervous about taking their kids out or, seeing other family members. And overall, it's important to realize that they're going to be pretty okay. Of course, you hear the, scary stories out stateside and elsewhere about, some younger person that, felt really ill, but overall they do okay. With COVID, I've seen a couple kids who were tested positive, and I was just amazed at how well they appeared. The story was something along the lines of, they didn't really have a fever, they had a cough, maybe threw up once, but when I saw them, they were running around. Nobody would look at the kid and say, "Oh, yeah, that kid, there's something going on." Right. Secondly, the mental health issue. Mental health is, a lot of people kind of shy away from the term, but just to address like the stress, any fears is something that kind of gets overlooked because we're stressed out right now. We're kind of anxious of how everything is going, but the kids definitely pick up on what the parents are feeling. And so I've seen kids in clinic that act just a little more, maybe a little more jittery, a little more nervous in clinic than I've seen in the past. And so that's something that's kind of new and kind of raised my antenna a little bit.
Right. Doc, I'm going to give you an example of that. So, like my younger kids, when we go around, so, over the weekend, they really wanted to go to the beach and go swimming, and we stayed, it's like 2 minutes away from one of the public, it's not a public park per se, but it's a public beach, first beach in Epen. So we drove over to swim, and man, there was just like, it was crazy. There were about 30 cars, and I want to say 6-7 different groups of people. Just it was nuts. And my the 5-year-old goes, "God, Dad, don't these people know about coronavirus?" So they're taking it serious, and they're actually not. And when you mention the anxiety and the stress, it is hard to read in little kids, but all of a sudden, it's like all these little children had to worry about life and death matters, about, mom and dad or grandma and grandpa getting sick and dying, and they see the news, they see it. They see the national stories, they see, the local stories. So you're right. I think a lot of us maybe not shy away, but just can't really wrap our mind around how this anxiety and this stress is affecting kids who we, as adults, automatically assume are just so resilient and they can just go through everything. So how do you talk about that with your kids?
One thing is, to help parents kind of recognize what some of the signs of stress you might see in kids would be. So a lot of times kids are going to manifest stress with abdominal symptoms. Like when you're little and you don't want to go to church, and you're like, "Oh, my belly hurts." That's a sign of stress right there. If you see any sleep disturbances, any regression in behavior, those are going to be signs that, maybe you should start and ask them. Easiest thing is just ask the child, how are you feeling? What's going on? Are you worried about anything? And just kind of open a dialogue. It's not going to be one conversation that kind of ends their stress and anxiety, but as long as I think the child knows that they're being listened to and getting some reassurance from the parents, right? Because you're absolutely right. They pick up on this, and kids are really good at understanding the rules and frameworks that are given. So if you as a parent tell them, "Hey, you cannot touch anything and you always have to wear this mask," well, when somebody comes up and wants to touch them, or you ask them, "Oh, it's okay, take off your mask," the child's going to feel a little like, "Hey, wait, my parents told me like I have to do this, and now I don't have to." It can get confusing for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And then as parents right there, so the anxiety, the stress that caused the mental thing, and then could they manifest into physical symptoms? Like what they do with adults, right? So when we're under stress, I mean, God, there's like hypertension, there's all these things that could happen. What about with kids?
Yeah, so mostly the physical stuff is going to be their behavior. So like sleep disturbances, maybe they're acting out a little bit more. And then if they say any bodily symptoms, it's usually going to be like the abdominal symptoms, so like belly pain.
I got you.
Yeah.
Have you, on the physician or anyone on the physicians advisory group, what communications have you guys been having with the Guam Department of Education? Because I do see and have heard from DOE officials that, part of this education stabilization funds that they received, I think it was like $40-some million, that part of it is going to go to emotional and behavioral wellness support. But have you guys had brought GDOE into any of the discussions that you guys have been having?
Oh, yeah. GDOE actually brought us into the discussion. And actually, really early on, I was really impressed with, I think John Fernandez mentioned early on that they already anticipated that kids were going to have some issues with, maybe stress, even the social isolation, right? So they were already planning to beef up their, behavioral services. And I really applaud them for that. It was, as a pediatrician, I was really happy to hear that. We've been involved with some meetings for them. We looked over the guidelines that they put out and give our feedback. We want to let them know that we're available as a consulting body. Because now that they have the big guidelines, their task is going to be to actually figure out how to implement and operationalize it for each individual school, which is going to be a very challenging task indeed. But yeah, we have meetings regularly, and I'm actually going to be emailing our lessons learned from the Japanese school after them later this morning. You guys just got a sneak peek of.
Okay, maybe you could put our names on that email too. Would be great. Sabrina at KUAM.com.
Right, yeah. Better put Sabrina's name.
Anything else? I know you said you talked to GDOE. What about with the other private schools?
There was a meeting. There's a joint meeting with the private and charter schools and GDOE together. But I was only in with the first introductory meeting. I think they're going to still work on their separate guidelines. But we've taken a look at some of the guidelines from the other schools that they just kind of sent to us to kind of look over. But I haven't seen anything final from any of the private or charter schools yet. But then again, they don't necessarily have to come through us for approval. Public Health will give the final approval. But if they wanted us to just kind of look over and give our thoughts on it, we were happy to do so.
All right, Doc. Well, we just wanted to bring you on. And then, as schools start to reopen, I think you provide a pretty cool perspective as a pediatrician. It's a kind of a viewpoint we haven't really had on the show consistently. So we hope we'll be able to talk with you more frequently as the opening of schools gets closer.
Yeah, happy to do so.
Right
Thanks,
on, Doc.
Dr.
Thank you. And then, Dr. of course, you're from One Love Pediatrics, right? And you got a Facebook page and all that.
Oh, yeah. One Love Pediatrics. That's it.
Right. Okay, thanks, Doc.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Wash your hands.
Wear a mask.
Okay, good. 8:51. A good talk there, Bree. It's pretty interesting. That school study.
Yeah.
It's 8:51. We had Sergeant Paul Tapao from the Guam Police Department coming on in a few minutes. We'll take just a short break. And again, the show is proudly brought to you by Calvo Enterprises, Ambrose Inc., IT&E, Coast 360, and the Bank of Guam. It's the KUAM News Takeover, Guam's favorite containing COVID. Good morning.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus, gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Yeah, Viva tomorrow! Viva! Come on, Bree.
What?
Hey, don't leave me hanging on the Viva.
Viva!
Right on. 8:56. Let's go to the phone. 637-0094. Yeah, we get the government, big wigs, give you guys the info. It's always great to hear from you guys, and we'll bring on Joe onto the show here. Good morning, Joe.
Okay, I want to report of a card game up in Dededo.
Let's start right in the beginning. Yeah. Good morning.
Yes.
Hello.
Good morning. Right on. Okay, so Joe, you're calling because you want to report
a card game?
Illegal gambling.
Oh.
And with this coronavirus going around, and we've been getting more cases coming in, it's not a good idea for these people to be gambling. And it's going to be more than social gathering and all that.
Right. So how many, what type of card game are we talking about? Are we just talking about like a little family card game, or are we talking about?
No, nothing. Let me tell you that I've been there already. And if you're a regular customer, a regular player, they don't sell alcohol, but you can drink a whole case. It's free on the house, as provided you're a regular player. That's the type of game that's going on over there. The way they're organized and all.
How many people are we talking about out here?
At its peak, you could have at least guaranteed 40 people, 20 to 40 people in that room.
Are you talking like multiple tables, or?
There is multiple tables.
Describe, if you could, the setup, Joe, in case we go by there later.
It's been like 5 years since I've been there the last time, so I don't know if it's changed. But see, now that this coronavirus is coming up, going on, and all these people going around, it's not a good idea. And even besides that coronavirus, it's illegal. I don't think they have a license to open that card game to go on.
Is this at a house or at a?
It's a building. I don't know. Somebody owns it, but they built that building just for gambling.
And this is in Dedido, right?
Yes, right across the Revival Church. That road. Take that road right in. I don't know if it's still a gravel. The last time I was there was a gravel road.
Oh, okay. So, where's the Revival Church? That's
When you're going up to Laddie Heights, it should be on your left side.
Okay.
So the road right across it.
Mm-hmm. But you said this has been going on for 5 years?
More than that.
Oh.
More than that. I could say 10 years.
All right.
And it's pretty big.
Is it late at night, or is it just all times of the day?
It can go on late into the night, but it opens, I think, after lunch, 12 o'clock, 12 to, I guess, midnight, or even longer. But if you want to get your cameras and get a good video of the people, go there 6 to 8 o'clock in the evening. You're going to probably, that's when the peak of the crowd will be there.
Mm-hmm. And is it just card games, or we're talking about like Liberty machines, like?
No, it's mostly card games.
All right. No dice or anything like that?
No, not that I know of.
It sounds like Bree wants to check it out. She's like, wait, they got dice? What they got?
No, it's mostly card games, but it's pretty big.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big setup, the way they got it organized and all.
Is it safe to go there, Joe? Like, because I'm wondering if we send our cameramen, I don't think they're going to be really happy about being.
Of course, they're not going to be happy about it. Of course. It's probably a private property. You can video it from the road.
You could, yes, correct.
And question the people, that's going in. Mm-hmm. Where they go? What's your purpose coming over here? How come there's a lot of cars? How come a lot of people?
And I guess we could also, we got Daphne from Rev and Tax calling tomorrow morning, so we could ask her. I don't know.
See,
Bree, is there like
my point is, with all this coronavirus going on and those people gathering, and even without the coronavirus, if anything else, I know it's illegal.
Mm-hmm. Right on.
There's no license for casino gambling, especially out in the village.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Joe, for the tip.
Joe, let me ask you: has this gambling operation in your area, has it, in your opinion, led to any increase in people breaking into cars or the sackies? Because the gambling a lot of times is associated with.
That's up in Dedido. I don't say in Dedido.
Oh.
But I'm pretty sure it has an effect on crime. Maybe not big effect, but I'm pretty sure it has some effect.
Right. Correct.
I'm pretty sure. And then usually with gambling, and especially when there's big money, you might be drugs, people with drugs, affiliated with drugs involved.
Right, yeah.
That's how it goes, like with the cockfight. Any type of gambling.
Oh, easy on the cockfighting there, guy.
Huh?
Joe, we had a comment here. Caller Joe, you admitted that you have been there.
Yeah.
Are you just as illegal as them? COVID has been happening since March. Why are you now calling? Did you lose anything?
No, I don't go there.
Okay.
I'm just concerned, and then my biggest concern is I have a relative who's 90 years old, and he goes up there, and he's in the age group where it's not safe to be with this coronavirus going on.
Right.
He goes there to gamble?
What else is there he's going to go there for?
Mm.
I'm just asking. I mean, you said he was your relative.
There to gamble.
Right on, Joe. Well, yeah, we've actually got Sergeant Paul Tapau on the line, so we'll ask him.
If anything else, to DPD, AG's office, and that place.
Right. Hey, appreciate it, Joe. You're kind of breaking up,
yeah,
but
I couldn't hear.
We definitely appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, you,
Joe.
Wash your hands, man.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Wow.
I think I saw pictures of this.
Really?
Before. I want to say before the COVID, there were people sending around pictures of they sent to me. It was a big. Before COVID, yeah, it was like a lot of cars. There was some
Do they
sniper
have
shots
any,
of
pictures
tables.
oh, okay. So like with the green
tables,
felt.
Right.
and,
But I wanted to go look into it, but I just I'm not saying I'm scared, but you show up there, you start videoing thing, gambling, not exactly like the most upstanding people. The whole shady operation. But I'll go check it out. I got nothing to do the next couple nights.
Well, it's a shady operation if it's illegal, but
if it's legal, like, do we do legal? I don't know. We'll ask Sergeant.
I mean, I wasn't sure if it was like you're at somebody's house and you're playing cards.
Right.
Okay,
yeah. But I think
that's okay, but not if it's a big time.
Right.
15, 20 tables. That's just not right.
Well, let's just ask Sergeant Tapao. Sergeant Tapao, good morning.
Hopefully, good morning.
If we could just ask you about this, we just got a tip about a gambling operation, but what is okay and when do you cross the line from having a friendly game of Hold'em at the house with family to maybe like a larger operation, multiple tables? Can you maybe give us any info on what's legal, what's not in terms of operating a gambling at your house?
Is this related to the last year's Liberation Day? I'm sorry, I just...
No, we got a tip of this guy called in and said around the Revival Church, there's some type of like gambling operation that goes down every day, and he's saying a lot of cars, 40, 50 people or whatever.
And it's been going on for years.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so this is new from our end. So pretty much it's regulated, of course. People needed to be taxed, the businesses needed to be taxed. If we follow the structure in which the Liberation Day festivities had the casinos and the gambling, the card tables, and the game of chance and everything, taxes had to be paid. So it's technically illegal if the house is profiting and, what they call in layman's term dragging. With I believe every 100 there's a drag, there's a certain profit that the house takes away or takes from. So this, in a sense, is considered illegal gambling. Now you have your regular mom and pop, barbecues and what have you, or it's 25, 50 cents, Texas Hold'em or bingo or what have you, where there's money that's exchanged, but there's no profit that's being made by a certain individual or a group of individuals for the purpose of gaining profit from other people. So this, technically is prohibited. It's allowed for people to engage in recreational, cards or bingo or, songka, just different things in which they can amuse themselves. But if a house is generating funds or generating profit and it's not registered under, revenue tax, then it's considered illegal.
Right.
Right, but gambling is just point blank illegal. Right.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and to a certain extent, and that's why I mentioned the Liberation Day festivities is when it's allowed. That's when you see the Mayor's Council, the Mayor's Council, the government of Guam, giving that certain window of opportunity or the window where the Liberation Day festivities starts and ends, where you're allowed to, like last year's casino. Right. It's a great example where the house was able to, make some profit, but they still had to pay tax. It's pretty much taxation.
Well, we're getting Daphne tomorrow, so I wonder if she would know offhand who's got a license to do what. It seems like it would be pretty easy to figure out.
Well, I don't think there's any license you can go and have
that's what I mean.
Casino.
The partners were actually, I believe there was an AG opinion based on the legality of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think they, the companies are honoring the opinion of the AG. So.
Right.
That in itself was actually deemed illegal by the AG. So.
What type of other illicit activity is associated with illegal gambling?
Well, it's you have a whole slew. That was pretty much notorious for armed robberies and of course the illegal sales of illicit drugs in the establishments, especially the 24-hour operation. It's a no-brainer. We had a lot of people talk about it. We had a lot of people come forward about how they're battling addiction and how, associated with, drug addiction, there was also the association of the gambling addiction with the pachinko. So there was
Yeah, but pachinkos I thought are supposed to be the machines with the balls, in them, not what we're seeing today.
Yeah, and we'll leave that at the the legal opinion that was of course opined by the AG and everything. So that's another set of the Office of the Attorney General did opine about the legality of the pachinko. So I think we're moving forward with that.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like we all know what's going on. We just kind of just drive on by. It's like, oh,
right. Don't look.
Yeah, we did. When we did the Crime Time, we interviewed a lot. We did some shows where Jess Mendiola was an advocate in closing down the pachinko parlors because he was an advocate to shut it down because of what was going on
right.
in there.
Yeah, Sarge, I did a ride along with the. I don't know if you know Sarge, but
I remember that.
I did a ride along with the Criminal Justice Strike
Yeah.
Force. Right, it's a nighttime ride along because we roll at night hard, but we came in hot, responded to a call at a game room over here in Dedido. And I remember on the way there, the officers that I was on the ride along with, they were telling me like, "Oh man, they're just like slanging ice out of these game rooms. There's money laundering, and we pretty much monitored, like drove around, looking at these game rooms because there's just always people hanging out outside. There were a couple calls where there was assault or theft, and so yeah, it's crazy to me how long we allowed these cancers in our community." These game rooms to operate, and only because they were politically connected with the right people.
Yeah, and I would tell you too. Growing up, the poker parlors were actually allowed and legal, and I remember sitting there and waiting for, my parents who dropped, a $20 roll, $30 roll of quarters, sometimes $100 roll of quarters, and it was tied in with the restaurants that we you would frequent. And it was pretty much a custom in which growing up, you had a game room, you had a poker parlor that was, the poker machines, and it was the move of the church to actually, right out made it illegal, and you had our Guamanians who fly over to Saipan because it was still legal there, but that was part of the culture growing up, and graduating from there into being my own person, seeing it firsthand as a law enforcement officer, that was always, there was always some sketchy things that were happening there. And then, you would always associate the illicit activities that were associated with the 24-hour game rooms.
Right.
So
I went into one once just to try and get some surveillance video. There was that incident over here in Dedido, the hair salon, where the guy had beaten the old Korean lady. So I went into a game room that was down the street to try and get some surveillance footage, and you just walk into the room and
Thanksgiving robbery. I remember that.
Right, and so you walk into these game rooms, and it's just crazy because the people at the machine are just like they're just zoned out, man, coming down or going up. I'm not sure where they're at, but it's something to see.
Studies have shown that it's even Vegas, when you watch these documentary about Vegas, the lights, the sound, the rolling, and the different things that just entices the mind and the eyes. The eyes, the mind, and of course the whole receptory system of the brain. It's like that's an addiction in its own.
Sarge, it's a science. Like I've read about casinos, and they're scientifically pumping like more oxygen in there, so you feel more awake. It's a whole a lot of science.
Really?
Yeah, check it out, Bree. Google it.
I practically grew up in Vegas, so
yeah, she does.
That's all right.
Right now, Bree's like, "Why y'all hating on gambling? Why you hating on gambling?"
I'll be true. I grew up loving Batu and marbles and stuff, and the sound of the clinging of the quarters going in the hole. It's like, oh.
Is that your trigger, Sarge?
That puts me in a in a euphoric state. So when you're holding $5 rolls of water and it slides in, and you hear that, we used to call that klebla, where everything just follows everything in, and we bet on the touch, and that's growing up. That was
then, not now, right?
Okay. Yeah, closest to the wall.
All right, so Sarge, I guess we'll switch gears now. We understand that some officers
Right.
were
Let's just get
tested.
an update
Right, yeah.
on what's happening at the Dededo precinct, because you guys are, moving people around. Some officers are in quarantine. Tests were conducted, at least from when we spoke yesterday. Do you have any results at all, or can you give us an idea of how many officers are in quarantine or how many have actually been tested?
Yes. So, again, what we reported, of course, was with the discovery, and of course, being made aware of an officer who tested positive. Again, working closely with the Department of Public Health and Social Service, we work closely with them with the contact tracing. Some officers were identified to be close contact, and moving forward with the testing and quarantine of these officers, we've actually were able to adjust personnel where we are able to still provide the coverage to the precinct. And of course, more tests will be available for the officers as the contact tracing still continues at the Dededo precinct. Now, we're working closely with them so that we can fulfill our operational side. And at the same token, also working with the personnel, the officers in itself, because this is a trying time. Anybody that has to go into quarantine, when you get the call from the Department of Public Health and Social Service that you're a part of a contact tracing, it really, the emotions run wild. And, I for one can speak on that because, onset of COVID, we were actually, my family, a close family, it does a lot. It does a lot. So, we're affording the opportunity to command, the immediate command, the Dededo Precinct Command, and of course the acting police commander and Chief Steven Ignacio is ensuring that we are taking care of the personnel that's being affected with the contact tracing, and of course, providing the services in which we can to, render aid and any assistance to help these officers out. But nonetheless, we still continue to work closely with them, assuring the coverage, assuring the services to the community, and of course, providing the safety, the safety and concerns of the community about the officers who may have come in close contact. We're working closely with DPA tests in doing the contact tracing, of course, quarantining our officers and getting the officers tested. So as for the results, we haven't had any of the results come back just yet. I believe it's 24 to 48 hours for the results to come back. So we did test. We've been testing officers. Some officers also got tested yesterday. They were afforded the opportunity to be tested at the Manila site, and we were able to test officers when we discovered the officer that was actually infected by the COVID-19.
The officers that were tested, are they all from the Dededo precinct, or are they from other precincts?
The immediate officers for the contact tracing is pretty much just from the Dededo precinct in itself. So, the command and the acting police commander assured the coverage of the void that we foresee, should the officers have to go into quarantine, because once you take the test, you actually have to be in self-quarantine for 24 to 48 hours until you get your test results. And then you get the clearance from the Department of Public Health where you're deemed safe, your test results came back negative, and you're able to come back to work. Right. So we're giving them at least that time frame.
How many officers have you had to shift to cover down over at Dededo?
We played the numbers, so we're going with the coverage of 1, 1, and 6. So that's one supervisor, one desk watch, and of course 4 personnel. So we'll be rolling out and entertaining calls. So throughout the whole precinct, that is the coverage that's provided to the community. So we're, the police commander and the commanders at the respective precincts have formulated a plan in which, all precincts will still have that maximum coverage that we can afford to the community.
So over at Dededo, you said 1, 1, and 6. So you had to put 8 people over at Dededo to make up for the officers that are in quarantine?
We have personnel that were also shifted from, that were afforded to come in and cover the void that were assigned to the Dededo precinct. And we shifted officers from, respective precincts to cover not just the void there, but the void that may exist with the coverage. So, plans were in play in affording the coverage of the respective beat areas.
Okay, yeah.
And then we also have our, we have our SWAT, our SOD guys that are, what we call our rapid response, our team that's out there. So, we still have the maximum coverage plus additional coverage with our SOD officers.
How many officers were tested?
That one I don't know, ma'am. I don't know the numbers to that. So, again, there's I want to assure the community that we are working closely with the contact tracing. So we're moving with the recommendations of the contact tracing.
But this particular officer that tested positive, is this officer on patrol? Like he's gone out into the community responding, or is he just on desk watch or whatever?
There's many different responsibilities, and you may have a desk watch assignment. You may have an administrative assignment. You may have officers that are grounded so that they can actually catch up on reports. So there's different operational styles with every different supervisor. I don't know the status or his performance status of what he did during the duration when he was actively in patrol or actively assigned up to the other precinct. So the personal responsibilities, I don't know what the responsibilities and of course the job requirements that they have, because we have a desk watch, we have we have officers who take care of administration, we have officers who generate reports. So they may not be in the service of the community, but they may be generating reports. They may be filling the desk watch. So the responsibility of the particular officer, I don't know as to what the officer did.
So what about like the cleaning and disinfecting? Did you guys have to do all of that?
We're
the precinct, the cars.
That's actually a unit directive and a standing instruction from the on the onset of COVID. Prior to COVID, we've been formulating, working closely with the administration, Department of Public Health and Social Service, and of course the liaison from CDC with the advisors. So at its infancy stage, and I want to date it back as far as March. Their earlier part of the year, where people were, the whole nation, the whole world was actually getting into the COVID phase and stuff. We were actually preparing. We had meetings. Our EOC were meeting with Guam Homeland Security. We had meetings with Department of Public Health and Social Service, and assuring that what we needed to do to maintain the safety of each officer or each person of the Guam Police Department. Unit directives were issued out. Instructions and of course direct orders were given so that the cleanliness, the hygiene, and adhering to the recommendation from Department of Public Health with the mask, social distancing, and of course the PPEs and how we respond to calls. So it's very unique. We have PPEs that are available to the officers. It's a controlled item. Should a situation require the usage of PPEs, the full donning, the face shields, the mask, the gloves, the respective gloves, and the booties. There is an operation play for that, but the basic, the precincts had to adjust to, and pretty much the whole Guam Police Department made adjustments where we actually didn't necessarily close the precinct or shut the precinct down, but we closed it to the community, where you had to wait outside, and we would entertain the complainant outside. Or we would make arrangements where we permit certain amount of individuals within the precinct. So we had a control platform set in play when we did that. And of course, the cleanliness, since COVID started, we mandatory clean your cars, your respective equipment, the precincts, was pretty much done by the personnel. And we're still conducting a deep cleansing. The Guam National Guard was actually here at the Central Precinct, and they're still here. They're doing a deep, thorough cleaning of the respective areas, the common areas, the high traffic areas, so to say, and providing the deep cleansing service that they're doing. They're what we call deconning the areas that may see high traffic.
We talked with Dr. About this study that they're doing, or the study that they just completed with the Japanese School of Guam, and one of the things they saw was that these kids, they are experiencing this elevated level of anxiety. But just hearing that and just thinking about what frontliners do, what GPD does on a day in and day out, 24/7, same thing with GFD. What kind of services is GPD providing to officers to maintain their mental health well-being?
That's it's interesting how you're asking that. We are spinning up a committee. We've been doing this prior to COVID. It's actually in its formulating. We actually got grant funding for this. It's a support mechanism within the department. I think it's first, and we're actually being recognized. And I can get you the full gamut of what this working group with the Guam Police Department, and it's really like a peer mentorship program for the for the officers. At times where we feel that the officers is not performing to the full potential, they may have issues, whether it be home, whether it be substance abuse. That may be an issue, whether it be dependency on alcohol, but just the performance rate, and of course the mental health aspect is what we're focusing on. And it's really interesting how you're asking that, because we are moving forward with training with Guam Behavioral Health, Health and Services, and providing the assist training to our officers, to providing safe talk training to our officers. So in line in moving with where we were planning prior to COVID, we have this mechanism in place. So we have a peer mentorship that's being spun up by the Guam Police Department, or has been spun up. And, we move forward. We've actually applied for the grant. It's a nationwide, effort in what we're seeing, because prior to COVID, there was this thing called things were happening nationwide where officers were committing suicide. So Chief Ignacio, assigned certain commanders about doing the research, and based on the research, this is something in which we wanted to provide the services to our officers, or our, not just our officers, but our employees with the Guam Police Department. So we are actually being studied now by the nation as the front runners into formulating this program. And next week we actually have formal trainings with Guam Behavior in the first steps in peer mentorship.
Wow.
So these are the services, and I can provide you more information. We have the full write-up for the grant. We actually got approved for the grant. Certain officers went off island for training. They did work studies with various agencies, and we've had our first two meetings was really formulating the team, the build team, and how we're going to deploy. And I'm part of that build team. And one of the things is really focusing on the mental well-being, the mental health, and the well-being of each officer, and understanding too, the study that was done with the Japanese school, and doing our research. There's a certain level of anxiety, but there's also a certain level where education comes into play, and understanding what we need, what's needed, or what needs to be done on a daily basis is pretty much like a religion in doing your part in preventing the spread of COVID. So, these are things in which we are formulating and reaching out and providing the service to the personnel with the Guam Police Department.
Well, that's good to hear. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I'm glad I asked. But
thank you for asking that, because we are Justin Officer Ekalani, he has been really been moving forward with this. He's a police officer 3. He's it's really it's something, and we have a build team that's been meeting on I want to say on a weekly basis about how we're going to deploy this. And like I said, we're really excited because we're having our first formal training next week, and what we get from this is what we want to bring to our personnel with the Guam Police Department, and understanding that there is a need for this. So like I said, I can provide you more information. I'll have Officer Ekalani reach out to you, and we can talk more about this.
Cool.
Thank you,
Sarge,
Paul.
I just had to ask, because there's so many rumors going around about resignation of Chief Ignacio. Also hearing some things about the status of his health, and we haven't heard from him in a while, and I mean, it's been a long time actually. And so, out of concern, just asking if you could address any of those issues. Are there rumors that Chief Ignacio may be retiring or resigning because of health reasons or anything like that? Can you give us anything?
He's still signing off on my, he's still our chief, I don't see him on a daily basis because I'm assigned here at the Central Precinct Command, but, we're still in communication, and he's still the chief. I don't have any information as to, any foresight of where, the direction of what you're hearing, but He's been signing off on a lot of our SOPs, our unit directives, our personal orders and stuff. So, we just had a discussion about cards that we're receiving, and of course, we just fulfilled our grant yesterday, and he signed off on it, and was working with his vision about the junior police cadet and providing the education platform. He had to be brief about what was going on. So, Chief Ignacio is still moving forward.
Is he teleworking?
I'm sorry?
Is he teleworking?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm here at the Central Precinct Command.
I mean, but you would know, Sergeant. I mean, if he's coming in, right?
Yes,
while you're over there.
I would know. I mean, he's, we are still.
I mean, is he okay? Basically, we're just. Is he all right?
I want to believe so. Yes. Like I said, I haven't made contact with him. I'm not gonna really.
I don't want to put you in a tough spot. Just we're concerned and we care and we just want to know.
Yeah, but he's still our chief. Chief Ignacio is still there. He's still making the decisions, making those hard decisions and everything, and it's the right choices and stuff. So, from where I'm standing, he's still my boss. He's still my chief. He's still the top dog.
All right, top dog. Okay, good. What about I wanted to follow up on these
top dog. Sorry, I love that. I got a top dog. You got 5 points there, Sarge.
Okay, I wanted to follow up on the investigation, the aggravated assault investigation and the crash investigation from what happened in Sinahonia, the Central Precinct Command hit and run.
Okay, so where we are with that, it's good seeing the officers that were involved in that. They're here, they're out and about, so they're working, it's a good thing. But, we are moving heavily with the investigation. There's a lot of stuff that's in play, and this is why we haven't released anything, and hopefully I can get something from our detectives as moving forward as to where we can actually release the information of this individual, this person of interest. We want to exhaust everything first before we reach out to the community. We don't see that this individual poses a threat to the general population, but we do feel that we need to bring him in, this individual in for what was committed on the day of the incident that happened here at the Central Precinct Command.
He doesn't pose a threat. Didn't he just ram his car into a police car on police property? That's not a threat.
Well, there's precursors that led to that. So we will be preparing something beforehand. So hopefully we can.
Are you basically saying that?
Should we exhaust all our means? We do have individuals from the courts assisting us with locating this individual. So we want to bring him in. Hopefully within the week. So we have our SOD guys, on a 24-hour shift that are constantly on the lookout for this individual, and of course, there's made alert. Pretty much a bolo has been issued out for this individual within the law enforcement realm. So we have, a lot of law enforcement partners have assisted have assisted the Guam Police Department in the search of this individual. So once we've exhausted all our resources, then we'll reach out to the community, the greater community, for assistance in providing any information as to whereabouts of this individual. So, we're uncovering some other, different things. So, this is something in which we want to keep it law enforcement sensitive, so that we can, protect the integrity of other cases that are developing from this.
All right.
All right,
thanks a lot, Paul.
Yeah.
I gotta cut out of the show right now, but
all right.
Okay, all right. You guys take care. Stay safe. God bless.
Thank you, Sarge.
Right.
Wash your hands, Kay.
Will do, sir. Take care.
Okay, see you. There you go, Sergeant Paul Tapau. Was it something I said, Bree?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Because you're leaving?
No, I have to go to a meeting.
They always leave. All right. Hey, guess what, guys? It's going to be the Chris Barnett Show for the next 30 minutes.
He's loving it.
Give
him a call.
I'm going to play a really long.
0094.
I'm just scared.
What are you scared of?
Without you here to rein me in, it's pretty dangerous.
Rein you in?
I mean, to keep
you
me. You
cannot be controlled. My glasses are fogging up.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so it's a 9:32. At this hour, I know the mayor's council's meeting, right?
Yes, that's where I'm going.
Okay. Okay, so hey, see you. Good job today.
Bye.
Right on.
Bye. Sorry. Bye, everybody.
All right, to make sure we talk about you when you go. Don't listen. Oh, darn. It's 9:32. We'll take a short break and come back with more of the KUAM News Takeover, Guam's favorite. It is containing COVID. Good morning.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus, gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus, gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
We're all in this together, and that means we all need to continue to do our part.
Now, we've all done an effective job of containing COVID throughout the Marianas, but we need to continue to maintain to stop the spread.
We can't let our guard down. Each and every one of us are soldiers in this war against COVID-19, and every day is a battle.
It may sound hard to believe, but combating COVID requires us to hold the line every single day by continuing to practice social distancing, wear a mask, and wash your hands.
If there's anything we've learned these past few months is that things can change within hours. We can wake up in the morning hearing there are 0 positive cases, and by the time we go to sleep at night, we can see a spike.
That's why we urge you to please continue the fight, not just for yourself, but for your family and friends.
We can do this together.
Let's all stay ahead of the spread.
This message is brought to you by the KUAM Care Force.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD. Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
cause that city life is way too fast. Yo, I'd rather stay in Guam because this life is bad. Ass and beaches, surrounded by my nature. No need to worry about these player haters and my culture. I got love for my people, still rapping Guam, staying true to my chat loose. Let me take you to an island where the sun never stops shining. Let me take you to an island.
Oh man, it doesn't get any more classicer than this. Are you guys ready?
I come representing Guam, USA. Raised on a hill in the Ville by the bay. Y to the O and to the is a. Me scooped out on the mic getting busy. Y'all know this pot. Cruising the day, then park the spot after dark
in the village. That's when weed was illegal. It's dated. Oh, it's so dated.
We just chilling.
Yeah, it's a little bit of Island Tribe, My Island Classic. Remember, that's all you get is local music here on the KUAM News Takeover of Guam's favorite. It's Containing COVID. All proudly brought to you by Ambrose Inc., IT&E, Calvo Enterprises, Coast 360, and the Bank of Guam. Coming up, we'll end the show on a good note. We're going to go down south to one of my favorite southern villages. Oh, yes. By the way, there is a Guam Public Library System board meeting today. Where is that at here? I think they sent the public a notice out. And I'm only telling you guys because I think it's going to be interesting. Because as you guys know, the director of the Guam Public Library System, Arlene Santos, who was one of the heralded quarantine shepherds, quarantine shepherd. She's being transferred from the Guam Public Library System to the Department of Chamorro Affairs, where she is replacing the former director, Anne Marie Arceo, who we need a flow chart of this. You guys ever see that video I did of my family tree? And it was just like one. Let me show you. This is the flow chart of Adaloop's reorganization with the retirements and all the shuffling that's gone on. It's kind of looks like that right there. Yeah, so basically Arlene Santos is going to be replacing Anne Marie Arceo, who went to go start a new revitalization program under Comisión Ifinot Samoru. Right, and so as you guys might recall, I had actually done a couple stories about Arlene Santos before the COVID. Because she's quite simply not legally qualified to lead the Guam Public Library System. I know what you guys are thinking. Oh, it's a library. Who cares? That's where they put the Tentago. It doesn't matter. But there are actually qualifications for that position, which are laid out in the law. But, who really cares about the law anymore? And basically, long story short, was the library board basically refused to hire her at the library. And that's why her, trying to find that notice for the meeting. That's why she was never hired. And they just kept extending her acting appointment, which again, I'm sure that raises a lot of legal questions. But, when you have a legislature that's being very, very nice to the administration, you don't really expect any type of tough questions or accountability. And again, it is the library, and I don't think anyone's rushing to do an oversight hearing on the library. But basically, another reason why the board had refused to hire her, other than she didn't meet the statutory requirements to lead the agency, was there were just so many complaints about her leadership at the library. And I'm not talking like one or two. I'm talking 19 to 20 different letters were, hold on, I think I found it, were written to the board about Mrs. Santos's leadership abilities at the public library system. And as you guys probably know, I was able to, can I WhatsApp this to you? Yeah, just to get it out there. As you guys, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, and I might try and get the story up here tomorrow, is I actually did an interview with her about this. And her take was basically that the governor put me here, and it's the governor's call, and the governor has the authority, and the governor, I know the governor kind of thing. Yeah, so it was a pretty interesting interview. There's the notice anyway. So, yeah, if you guys want to go check this out, the Guam Public Library System, it's the regular board meeting, which is open to the public. This is open to the public. And actually, I got a call from a staffer at the library yesterday, and they were telling me that, Chris, can you please announce that there's a meeting tomorrow? Because, and, you know, this is just what the staff had told me, that the outgoing director was somehow trying to close the meeting to the public, which you can't do legally, but there's a lot of things you can't do legally that get done. So there you go. If you guys want to check that, that's 3:30 p.m. today. It's a public board meeting for the Guam Public Library System. All right. I wonder who they're going to put there at the library. Going to be interesting. It's pretty interesting, too, because I think the vice chair of the Guam Public Library System board had actually applied for this job. Isn't that funny? That is so hilarious to me. Somebody actually filling out an application for a GovGuam directorship. But apparently a lot of people did. And as you may recall, here on the show, we had Dave De La Sola when we really took him to task for all these political hires that are processing your unemployment assistance benefits. He said that there was a filing cabinet over at Adelup full of applications from everybody who wanted to get a job and get in with the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration. So if you were wondering, maybe like the library board vice chair was, whatever happened to your application that you filled out? Sorry, that's just like the idea that we're going to actually use an application process to hire political hires. It's just funny to me. And I don't know what's funnier, that the vice chair of this board thought that he actually had a chance to get the job because he was qualified. Because, yeah, it's interesting. He actually holds the degree or whatever that you need to lead the library. So, yeah, they've got a bunch of applications there at Adelup with the transition team. So, yeah, go check that out. And I'll try and get that interview, that story that we had done with Arlene Santos. And these employees of the library, man, they just alleged all kinds of stuff. I mean, and, you know, I could understand one letter, two letters, but 19 to 20 different letters? Whoa. That's already a problem. That's already like National Guard level, right? Mind-blowing, you know, that, I mean, God, I think there's more letters than staffers. How many people work at the public library? It's probably like 8, and maybe they each wrote 3 letters or something, but obviously had an issue there with the director. And I'm kind of curious if that had anything at all to do with them moving her out of there, because I'm just wondering with these senators, right? I mean, you see these people who are acting directors of these agencies, and an acting appointment's supposed to be 90 days, but Arlene Santos has been there at the library, God, like over a year, or at least a year, or something crazy, way beyond 90 days. And no one's checking on this stuff. No one. No one except KUAM News. Right. So that's one of the things I'm working on. There's another cool thing that I was working on. Well, I thought it was cool. But it's relative to the social media spending at the office of the governor. Can we pop up that video? I got some video here. So I had sent a FOIA to the office of the governor, and it was basically me asking them, how much money have you guys spent on social media? And it was just kind of like, oh, let me just see how much they spent. I thought it would be a cool little story just to write up, you know, hey, your governor has spent this much on social media, because they're doing a lot of social media advertising. You see it in your Facebook feed. There's always these things that pop up and it says, you know, sponsored by the office of the governor. But that's what's interesting about this is those ads say that they are paid for by the office of the governor, but they're actually not. And so I had sent a FOIA, and we'll pop it there, and I FOIA'd any and all documents. Tell me how much you guys are spending on social media. And the response came back that they had no documents, not a single piece of paper, not even one piece of paper at Adelup that shows the people of Guam how much of your money they are spending on social media. Because in talking with them, and especially during the COVID, they really drummed up the governor's social media, partly because obviously they want a platform where they can get out information. And during the COVID, I mean, we all know information, it was so key. And so I think the thinking with Adelup was, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, they just saw Mike St. Nicholas's social media reach and power and influence, and they were like, oh, we want that there. That's what we want to do. And so they worked really hard to post a lot of stuff and to pay for a lot of those posts. And so that's why I thought it was really interesting when I got, wow, that's a fast scroll. I'm like, I thought it was really interesting when I asked, how much money have you guys spent on social media? And the response was, we have spent nothing. And so I had reached out to the governor's communications director, Janela Carrera, and said, how can that be that the office of the governor has not spent a single penny on social media advertising when I'm looking at 51 different Facebook ads from the office of the governor? And the response was, Carlo will call you. That's when you know you're going to get something good. And so the policy director, Carlo Branch, did call me, and we had a conversation about it the other day. We actually did a little texting back and forth on it this morning. And it turns out this is really just it. It's kind of, and I'm kind of like a donation procurement nerd. I had a blast, reporting on the transition team and the donations that they got and the money they were able to raise and how they were able to spend it, what they were able to spend it on. And that series of stories kind of triggered, I think it kind of triggered an audit of the transition fund, which never been done before. And I remember interviewing the public auditor, BJ Cruz, and he said, hey, this is a seminal case. This is something we've never looked at. We've never really examined this transition law. And so that was that. And so what is happening with the social media spending of the office of the governor is, according to the policy director, Carlo Branch, he is paying for the social media advertisements of the office of the governor with his personal funds. That's right. He told me that he pays for all of the Facebook ads you see. I'm not sure if that covers the Instagram too, but he pays for them with his personal credit card. And he said that he does this as a donation to the governor, which I felt was really interesting, because when you look at the governor's Facebook page, none of the ads say paid for by Carlo Branch. Not a single one. They all say paid for by the office of the governor. And so what I was calling around a bunch of people, and part of it is, it's simple. And, Carlo kind of responded in this way where, hey, we're not, and that's probably maybe what it is I'm thinking they didn't want that optic of, there's a pandemic and we're spending, whatever, a couple thousand on social media advertising. And so Carlo Branch pays for it. And that's that. And what I'm curious about is, are they required to disclose that donation? What are the laws on donating? Things like that. I mean, and he said he does not get reimbursed for it. He just does it out of the kindness of his heart because he's, he's in. And so, yeah, he had said, as I recall, because I'd asked him, are you or the governor's office required to disclose the donations that you make to pay for the governor's social media spending? And he said, as I recall, the statute requires that I write a letter indicating the donation to the governor, but because these are occasional monthly charges, I was waiting till I got to an amount for a fixed period. And then he tells me here for June, he spent $372. I spent more in previous months, but my app statements only go back 30 days at a time. And then he had put, I spent like $1,000 from January to June. So as you can see this, and when I heard it, I was like, what, you pay for this out of your personal funds as a donation? Like, are you rich? That's what I asked him. I said, are you rich, dude? Because dang, like I'm looking at 51 different Facebook ads. And if you go on there, there's a thing. If you go on the Facebook, I don't know if you guys do this. You go on the Facebook page, and there's a little thing called page transparency. Sorry, one-man show in here. I'm just one man. Only one man. One man with a microphone. So when you go on the Facebook pages, and these are pages, right? So if you go on Congressman St. Nicholas's Facebook page or anybody who has a page, there's a thing there that says page transparency. And if you click on that, like I did with the Office of the Governor's Facebook page, you go to ad library, and then that'll show you how many different ads that page is run. And so for the Office of the Governor, they've run 51 different Facebook ads. And I'm not hating, I'm really just stating. I mean, when we ask about the donations and what's legal, what's not, what's required to be disclosed, I mean, I'm definitely going to ask a few different people about it, because I just think it's interesting that we think it's paid for by the Office of the Governor, but it's not. And then for the documentation, what Carlo had told me was he pays for it with his personal credit card, but because that's not a public document, we would be limited in our ability to review. And basically, so I just asked him, hey, how much did you spend? And so to me, just wondering and thinking out loud, one of the things I'm thinking is anybody being reimbursed for this? Are the numbers that we're receiving even accurate? You know, and these are just legit questions to ask. I'm not calling anybody a liar, but I just wonder, like, why would you spend? Okay, and then let me just get a number, because Facebook doesn't give you an exact dollar amount. So when you go on this page transparency thing, you go to ad library, you'll click on the ad, and it'll tell you they spent, more than $100 or less than $100. It's not really specific, but for the most part, most of these ads were under $100. So I don't know if that's $50. I don't know if it's $99. Some of them were $100 to $499. And so in my mind, I was just like, wow, it's kind of fishy. I don't know. It seems kind of fishy, because I don't know. I mean, why would you pay for something that you don't have to pay for with no hope of getting reimbursed? I mean, it's just throwing money at the governor's Facebook page. And texting back and forth with him, part of the gist of what he said was, hey, I mean, God, how many times I bought equipment at a place with my own money? And yeah, we all do that, right? We do. I mean, I bought stuff that I need to do my job that you just got to get it done. But this is a bit different for me, because it involves a public office, private money, and I'm just not sure what type of scrutiny we should apply to this, because I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it. I just think it's interesting that, we've got the policy director spending thousands, or, whatever he's saying he's spending, which we don't know, on social media. And is there something happening where someone's getting reimbursed for this under the table or what? I'm just thinking out loud here. It wouldn't be totally unheard of. But I don't know what you guys think. I just thought that was very interesting. When I was on the phone with him, and I braced myself, because when they say, oh, Carlos going to call you, got to put your A game on. You know what I mean? Because that stuff is just, you're going to get dizzy maybe. And so when he told me that I pay for it with my personal funds as a donation, I was like, Rico, what you talking about, Willis? What? I don't know. I just think it's kind of weird. So that was that. That was just something I was working on here. Because what they're doing really, though, I think, like I said, I'm going to go back to Congressman Mike St. Nicholas, who, this guy owns social media. And I think the governor wants that same power. I think if they had their way, they would not only mute the media, they would totally cut us out of the equation. And that's really what they're doing. This is an attempt to establish what we in the media call a state media, right? And it's so convenient, because eventually there's not going to be any more press conferences. They're hardly having them now. I mean, look at all these positive cases we're having, all these issues. Thoughts at press conference. I mean, you don't think the people of Guam got questions? You don't think you need to, like, address them? But they can address you guys, and they'll address you on the governor's Facebook page, which is a one-way communication. So if from a media standpoint, that's what I think is happening here is they're creating a platform. They've created a platform by using Carlo Branch's personal money. They've created a platform where the governor can go on and make her announcements, and no one's going to ask her any tough questions. No one's going to ask her about the legal counsel. No one's going to ask her about, anything. And she could just put it out, and that's that. The problem I have with that is any good democracy worth anything really must involve the media. We're the fourth branch of government. We're here to ask the questions. But the problem is if you can't ask a question, where are we? Where are we then? If we can't I can't ask a question to a Facebook video. I can't. You guys can't either. And so that's why I wanted to kind of address this, because I think it's, although we're not seeing it now, that's what the plan is with this, is to create a platform. And it is what it is. Oh, it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, the governor should have a place where she can just address the people. I get it. I do. I get it. They do it in the States, right? We're trying to be like the States. But if we're going to do that, then at the very least, the public should be able to, and the media should be able to sit down across a Zoom or across a table and ask questions about the answers that you get to those questions. And that's the problem I have with it is as the COVID has progressed, our access to the highest elected officials in our land has decreased. And it's decreased because they now have somewhere they can go to just put stuff out, and that's that. And whether or not you guys have a problem with that or you think it's cool or whatever, I'm just putting it out. I just think that's my take on it. It's 9:59. If you're wondering where Sabrina is, she did not resign or retire. She just ran over to the Mayor's Council of Guam, where at this hour they are now having their meeting. And it's now time to end the show on a good note. Shall we? I want to go down south. I love the South. It's funny, this person who called me from the Guam Public Library System, I didn't know the number. I don't know how people get my number, but I used to be like the average Chamorro out there. When a weird number calls your phone, oh no, that's the bank, don't answer. Oh no, that's the collect, don't answer. But now, especially since the COVID, I get a number that I answer, because it's always someone who's trying to ask me a question or, find something out or give a tip. And so this guy had called and he goes, Chris, you don't know who I am, but we're related. And he said, you're from the South. You have the blood of the South. And I want to just tell you that, there's a meeting tomorrow. Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of buildup. And then there's a library board meeting tomorrow. Okay. So that's that. And yeah, I am from the South, obviously. And that's why I got a special place in my heart for the village of Inarajan. One of the first cancellations of the COVID was one of the events that we're able to do every year. We've done it, I think, the last 3 or 4 years, Chiefs Day. And what it is, man, I was bummed. I was so excited for this. Is I get all the local artists to come down to Inalahan and Gefpagu, and we do a free local music concert. And every cent of the money goes to the Inaran Middle School, the Inaran Elementary School. And through Chiefs Day, we've been able to provide improvements like benches. Kids were able to go on a field trip. Great things like that. And it's only made possible from the support that I get from the local artists. And so for this year, we had Chiefs Day. Again, kind of choked up because we had it all lined up at all the artists, you know what I mean? And every year it's like, hey, can you do Chiefs Day? And so I was like, of course, count me in. So I did the flyers, put them up everywhere, and then the COVID hit. So I've been jonesing for some Inalahan in my life because we weren't able to do that Chiefs Day this year. And that's why when someone sent me this video from Inarajan, I got excited. to show it to you guys and to get the mayor of Inaran, outgoing mayor Doris Lujan, to kind of talk about this great thing that they were able to do in Inaran. And what it is because the Inaran Elementary School is being used as a grab-and-go meal distribution site for the Guam Department of Education meals, they weren't able to have any type of graduation, recognition, or ceremony for the students at Inaran Elementary School. And so, Mayor, that's where you kind of came in, right? Is that you got the news that they weren't going to have any type of anything to recognize the students going from elementary to middle school. And then that's when you got the phone call, right, Mayor? Go ahead and tell us about that.
One of the parents contacted our office and asked if we could do something for the fifth graders that are, going into the middle school next school year. And because she said that, the parents, management at Inaran Elementary School does not plan to do anything for the kids. And I agree with it, and we have a program. We called it Award and Go. I mean, I was really touched, when I saw that motorcade from the Inaran Elementary School through our village, and the kids stopped by, our grab and go stand. Award and go stand, and getting off of the vehicles, and of course we were able to give them their gifts. I was really teared when I saw those kids with the big smile that were all dressed up, and they were very proud of their accomplishments, growing to the next grade level. Honestly, it's something that we can do for our kids, and we're all kids, and this is something that we would like to honor them and congratulate them as well as their parents for being supportive of their children. And of course, that's our thing, that we have the best hospitality here on the island of Guam.
Mayor.
And anything for the kids, and let me tell you, the big smiles on their faces, I was in tears, honestly. I was, grateful that we can do this on behalf of the Inaran Mayor's Office and the Municipal Planning Council.
Mayor, when the parents came to you and you did this with the motorcade, and what was it like logistically to be able to pull off something like this in a short amount of time?
Well, I asked my staff if they can go and just put together a gift bag for the kids, and each one of them have the same thing in their bags, and I said, by all means, let's do it for them, because the middle school did something for the middle school going into high school, Southern High, and why not our fifth graders? So that's a big step for them going into middle school. And let me tell you, the smiles on their faces, it just touched my heart.
Mayor, I know that you're not running for re-election, so is this going to be one of the cherished memories of your term serving the people of Inaran?
Definitely. I wish I could go further, but life is too short. I want to take care of my health, and I committed what I say I need to do. I wish I could have more time, but life is, like I said, life is too short. I want to take care of my health and enjoy life, and I have accomplished a lot here for our community, and I have worked hard, to ensure that we improve our quality of life.
Mayor,
and being a mayor, it's a big challenge, and I love being a public servant.
Mayor, you talk about challenges, but they're rewards, right? So when you put on this award and go ceremony, did it kind of remind you that this is why I got into public service, maybe?
And they came to me and asked me if we can do something for the fifth graders. So I called my staff and said, we have to do this. We did it for the graduates, for the high school graduates, and why not? Let's be fair. And it's just that seeing those kids, man. Let me tell you, I am so proud of them, and I congratulate them. Along with their parents, they're very supportive, and it just touches me really when I saw them pulling in and getting their wrap rag, and they're all dressed up. I mean, as if they have an award ceremony.
Hey, they were all not my good day, no?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, man. I don't have any kids myself, but I'm all about kids. I mean, we are proud of our community. Honestly, I mean, the parents, and I give them a lot of credit. They're very supportive of their children and their accomplishments.
Well, Mayor, we just wanted to recognize the good work that you did, because the people in the village, we called the school. I said, hey, can we interview you guys? And they said, no, this was all the mayor. Go and check the mayor. So we want to recognize you as our COVID hero for the day, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Chris, and God bless you all, and thank you all also for what you're doing on the air, and I really appreciate it. And let's continue to be safe and stay healthy.
Amen, Mayor, and wash your hands, okay?
Of course, I always wash my hand. Okay, be safe. And, Chris.
Algo más.
And kudos again to the community of Inalahan.
Okay, Mayor.
It's all about family. And let me tell you, our children are first and foremost, as well as our manamkos.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor Doris from Inarahan, as the rain starts to fall in Harmon. I want to keep it south here, as we just got word that Moleso Mayor Ernest Chargaloff has just been hospitalized. We'll bring you more information on that. Of course, our thoughts and our prayers go out to not just the mayor, but his family, as well as the people of the beautiful village of Moleso. Our thoughts are with you guys this morning. And wow, it is raining cats and good logos. Can we get a shot of the rain? Yeah, I know. I don't know if you can. They're like, we're not supposed to move the iPad during the show. Yeah, it's raining cats and logos out there, guys. Be safe and die silence. That's Palaxi to the maxi. For Sabrina and our digital stream team, thank you guys so much. Love you. Guajosi Chris. Hasta. Adios.